Welcome back, Red Spotters! Another Train the Red Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Alexis J. Soto, joined by Mr. Peter Martinez. We are back. Sorry for missing a couple of days, maybe even a week by the time this thing even gets uploaded. I'm not sure. We have been busy catching up on all of the many different movies and television shows that are out there right now. And while I feel, do a good job of keeping up with them for the most part, sometimes we are susceptible to falling behind, and unfortunately, it seems like we have been caught between a rock and a hard place, no pun intended, obviously, for what we're discussing today. We've got some new movies to discuss with you today, but unfortunately, they are not the ones that we would have liked to have covered as promised in the previous podcast where we discussed, or we had, teased about the Netflix horror trilogy, Fear Street, 94, 78, and 66. And we will absolutely make sure to get to that as soon as we can, but unfortunately, we're kind of rubbing up against some big films that everyone's talking about. So as far as today's show is concerned, we are talking about The Jungle Cruise, the new Disney film starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt, as well as The Green Knight by surely what is, or at some point will be referred to as auteur director David Lowery, and starring Dev Patel's The Green Knight, the new feature from the art house film studio A24. As well as some news about the nature of movies going to streaming. It's kind of an interesting, I don't know, maybe a spiritual successor to Warner Brothers making that big announcement last year of like dropping all their films on HBO Max, where we have a star here of a big movie, this being Black Widow, suing the distributor Disney over the profits that movie would have made and what is owed to her and how that's going to affect. And then also a little bit of an analysis as to how Premier Access is doing, since as far as we know, Jungle Cruise is the last film on Disney's catalog that has been publicly stated to be on the Premier Access window on the Disney Plus subscription streaming service. And that's our show here for Red Spotlight number 341, but do not worry, we will get to Fear Street when we can, but we also have to say that guess what comes out next week? The Suicide Squad, the first James Gunn film in 5 years, the sequel to the the Suicide Squad movie, all the way back from 2016. I know this is going to be, hopefully, fingers crossed, the first movie that Peter, Kyle, and I are finally able to see a film together. Again, fingers crossed, see if we can make that actually happen. But it is a big film, perhaps among some of us, I mean, maybe the most.
So huge, so big, yeah. Perhaps the biggest film that has ever been made, bigly, so big. Everyone's saying it's the biggest film they've ever seen, okay? Huge.
And easily one of the most anticipated movies as far as our panel, our group here is concerned. Mm-hmm. With a couple of exceptions. Of course, there's no bigger Dune groupie than Peter. So there is that. And at some point, I believe we may even also cover other films that are coming out in the next month, like Ryan Reynolds' movie Free Guy is finally at long last going to be distributed theatrically.
Oh, yeah.
So,
that's right.
Can't wait to see all those. But
I thought that was just a fake movie to sell the idea of a movie experience.
No. Those trailers have been out for a long fucking time, and we've been waiting so long for this one, especially.
It's not only they've been out for a long time, they've been consistent.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a movie trailer comes out, and then you forget about the movie, because there was only one trailer, and then it went away. Mm-hmm. But with this one, it just kept playing.
It did. Yeah. So there is that. But do not worry. Fear Street will get its due. And just as a real quick endorsement, if you love movies, if you have a knack for horror movies, and if you've missed some slashing movies,
if you love the gays.
Oh, especially. I forget that, yeah. Watch them. That's all I'm going to say. Well, I feel like they're mandatory viewing as far as I'm concerned when it comes to the realm of films in 2021. So talk about them, watch them, please, because I, for one, and I'm sure Peter can agree to it as well, had a great time watching those movies.
Did you know, and this would have been really interesting, before they were sold to Netflix, they were supposed to be released in theaters.
I did not know that. Honestly,
a month apart from each other.
You're kidding. That would have been an interesting experiment pre-COVID.
Crazy, right? Mm-hmm.
Pre-COVID. Now it would have been hopeless to even bother with that. But before, that would have been fascinating to actually see. But I don't know. I think it served Netflix well, and they need more stuff like this. And I think it's just further example that Netflix, either distributes or produces some of the best films released today as far as cinema is concerned. Even though some people out there make fools of themselves by saying that Netflix doesn't make any good movies and that the Trial of Chicago 7 is the best movie they've ever made, which is ridiculous on just about every level. So just, if you know what I'm talking about, good for you. So there is that. And yeah, I think that's kind of where we are at the moment. Fantasy Fair is on a little bit of a break. They just released a couple of reviews for Black Widow and Loki, and then Kyle's recent trip to Disney. And Miss Moreno has actually gone to vacation in Mexico, I believe. So that's where she is.
Are you sure?
Where do you think she is?
I don't think she's legally allowed to be that far from Disney.
Well, you do realize
or her soul would burst into flames.
That's a clever way of actually connecting that to the movie we're discussing today. And that'd be Jungle Cruise. Who would have guessed?
That's true.
It's actually a pretty clever connection to it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I think there's also even another movie coming out next month through Netflix, and that is Lin-Manuel's next animated musical. So a lot of stuff coming. Yeah, it's coming out. I think
Netflix?
It's Netflix. It's a Sony
needs to spend a tiny amount of money on advertisement.
That's the one criticism that they've been getting for years, and they don't seem to care.
They
just don't seem to care.
I don't know. But there is just so much stuff where it's like, wow, would have been nice to know about this, I guess. Oh, well.
It's just like, it sucks that whenever I'm interested in something that Netflix has, I always have to start off by going to the search bar and looking for it.
Yeah.
It pisses me off that I cannot, like, even the new releases of that weekend, I can't just, like,
yeah, sometimes I'm like scrolling, like,
I know, it's annoying.
I know this just released today. Like, where is it? No, their algorithm, their algorithm for recommendations, like, sucks. It really does.
Yeah, I don't know. Other streamers have shown a much more efficient way of displaying their original content, just as it should be, and yet Netflix doesn't seem to care to do that at all. And
it's really weird.
It is, and honestly annoying. And I rarely use it these days. I mean, unless I need to see the, like, with Fear Street or something, like I know I want to see, or the Lin-Manuel animated movie at some point. The Sony one, not the Disney one. The Disney one is coming out in theaters later this year. So, as a brief aside, I mentioned this to Peter. I know I mentioned this to Peter in the theater. Like, Lin-Manuel has 4 movies coming out this year, all musicals. The Sony animated movie, the Disney animated movie Encanto. We just had In the Heights, which nobody saw, and then there's also Tick Tick Boom, which is also going to be released on Netflix.
I don't even know what that is, but yeah,
Andrew Garfield's in the trailer. I don't know. You may have seen it, I think.
He makes good music.
He does, yeah. Yeah. So I wonder how all that's going to fare with other musicals coming out this year as well, like, West Side Story, Dear Evan Hansen. I don't know if you've heard much buzz.
That one looks funny.
It does, but not in a good way, though. What did you think of the trailer for, since we're on the topic of music and movies, there is a Aretha Franklin biopic coming out, I think, soon.
I saw that. It looked boring.
It looked like the same movie we've seen thousands of times.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that's exactly kind of the sweet spot, and I don't think I'll be too bold to say that kind of puts Jennifer Hudson in the lead to win some kind of Best Acting award next year easily.
Hopefully. Actually, I think she's great.
I love Jennifer Hudson.
Yeah.
She's already won an Oscar, hasn't she, for Dreamgirls?
No, I don't think so.
No, she did. I think she was already...
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I don't know. I don't know. I do think she needs better management to help her pick her roles.
Oh, wait. I forgot she was in Cats.
Yeah. She was the cat.
Yeah, Peter, I was right. She won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for Dreamgirls in 2007. So she's already an Academy Award winner, which means
then fuck off.
Well, it means the opposite, because that means she has an advantage that she's already that likable. She has a great chance of winning.
They got their people they like.
Plus, it's the role that always kills. You're playing a real person. She can actually sing. Like, she's gonna no matter how bad the movie may be, she will crush this performance. So
yeah, as long as the movie is passable, that's kind of the Academy's sweet spot. Passable films with like great performances. So yeah, we'll see. But I mean, they didn't play that trailer, so I don't know.
They played it, I think, at the last movie I was at, which was... At this point, I forget. Not Space Jam. I didn't see Space Jam. It was, I forget. Maybe it was Black Widow. Which was already like a couple of weeks ago. So, we'll go ahead and use that as a transition then. We will get to the reviews. But first, there was some major news happening in the world of movies this week. Perhaps some of the biggest news that have happened in quite some time. And also, as I mentioned at the top, a great spiritual successor to all of the drama that unfolded, in the wake of Warner Media making that decision at the end of last year to release all of their 2021 movies simultaneously in theaters as well as HBO Max. And we've seen it before our very eyes happen for many of these movies. Suicide Squad will be one of those movies that'll have that simultaneous day and date release next week. Mm-hmm. But remember, at the time that all of this happened, there was a lot of drama. In particular, Legendary, the production company that put up the money to make movies like Godzilla vs. Kong as well as Dune, they were among the ones that were very much pissed at this, and in some articles threatened litigation. They didn't formally file litigation. They were able to actually come to some kind of compromise between the two of them, an understanding of sorts. And there were all these kind of movie stars that were, themselves upset with this decision. And so the story as it went, as I understand it to be, that Warner Brothers had to, after the fact of announcing this, had to go and make sure that these actors were guaranteed the back pay that they originally get. As a quick important thing to mention for those who are not familiar with this business, a lot of these movie stars, like a Scarlett Johansson or a Denzel Washington or Emily Blunt, their bonuses, shall we say, or part of the money or the net amount of money they can earn from a movie is, in a normal theatrical environment, part of the box office profits a movie earns in its entire run at the very end to see how much the movie has made. Overall, that number at the end of the run is used to determine how much extra money the star can make, but they are promised in these contractual agreements that they are to be owed a sum amount at the end of a box office run, which is why a lot of actors like Gal Gadot and others, or maybe she may have been one of the ones that actually got paid off, but some of the other ones were upset, like Denzel Washington, that this was announced and they weren't even... Yes.
That was before they got... He was probably the reason why everyone got paid. He was the first one to go like, well, hold on now. And then I think instead of having... Because it wouldn't have just been Denzel, it would have been...
Everybody.
so many movies, right? They just decided to just pay everyone off.
Right.
So then all their crying disappeared overnight.
Right.
Who'd have thought? Remember all those... oh, this is so funny too. Remember all those cries about the theatrical experience and the integrity of movie making, and this is outrageous, and then everyone got paid, and they're like, oh, okay. Silence after that.
That's all it took, which honestly isn't surprising in the least. Of course, that many talks, as they say. So that's the situation as it was then. Fast forward to where we are now, and something has brewed at the House of Mouse that, if you just look at what happened to Warner Brothers, it really shouldn't have been that surprising. And for the most part, a lot of their talent really just kind of took it until recently, where things really did take a turn. And that is, in the last week, the star of Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, revealed that, contrary to the title of our review of Black Widow a few weeks ago, for those who are not aware, the title of the episode was called One Last Fuck You to Natasha Romanoff. And it turns out that title may have been a bit premature, because there was one more that Disney had left to dish out. And what was revealed is Scarlett Johansson formally filed a lawsuit against Disney, the distributor of the film Black Widow, over the profits of Black Widow, because she argues that she is owed some kind of reimbursement, or whatever word you want to use in that, because
she want that money. Because
of the fact that Disney decided to simultaneously release Black Widow in theaters as well on Disney Plus through the $30 pay window of Premier Access. And so
she sees none of that money.
And she and her team is arguing that because the film was available on the streaming service, it hindered the overall gross of Black Widow, at the box office. One caveat to mention. China, the second largest market on the planet. God, stop with that. It's so funny when he says China. Seriously. The second largest market on the planet, for reasons that have not been made clear. And I am really curious to see what direction they think they're going to go, but they have not even revealed when Black Widow will be playing in theaters in China, because they have not allowed Black Widow to play in theaters at all. And at this point, with so many pirated copies readily available online.
Yeah, at this point, what's the point?
There's really no one, I think, that would be interested in even going to watch the movie. So that has played a huge part. And I mention that because we don't know if Eternals or Shang-Chi are going to be given dates yet. We suspect perhaps yes, but they have not announced when those films are going to play.
I don't know about Eternals, but for sure Shang-Chi, that's got a little bit of bad blood.
Well, Eternals has bad blood.
Eternals too, that's right.
Well, maybe not so much the populace, but the government has a thing against Chloe Zhao, the director.
Yeah, Chloe Zhao. So it's like if they basically, because they kind of did fuck over the Black Widow film, who's saying they wouldn't with those two? Right?
Exactly. So
and that's like 3 Marvel films in a row.
Yeah, that throws a big wrench into everything. So for those who are listening, that's a big factor that definitely played into how poorly Black Widow is doing. Aside from the obvious fact that we're still in the midst of a pandemic, a pandemic that for a while seemed to have receded in the States. There seems to be a resurgence now with Delta variant plus, which has now spurred a further push for those to... Did you see over the weekend that Disney and Walmart now has officially mandated that their employees have to be vaccinated, as well as the president of the United States saying that all government employees have to be vaccinated? Yes.
Because businesses don't want to shut down again.
Nobody wants to fucking shut down again.
Nobody wants to shut down. So they're like, shut the fuck up and get vaccinated because we got money to make.
The Republican Party... The leadership of the Republican Party has now gotten behind that mantra. Shut the fuck up and get vaccinated. Mitch McConnell.
They endorse it somewhat, but it's like they're like, you guys, you really need to get vaccinated. But, you know, it's also, you know, I'm not saying you should.
But you saw
like
how
they're trying to play it both ways, but it's very clear.
Some of them, though, have been really, not relentless, but they've been really aggressive in their I'm blanking out on the word.
Push? I don't know.
On their rhetoric. One of them, I think it was the governor of Missouri or Iowa, I can't recall. But she was basically saying that the unvaccinated are to blame for the rising.
Because they are.
But I mean, for somebody of her political background to say that's true. That's interesting to say the least. So that's the story in the U.S. As far as where COVID is around the world, it's really complicated where you are. I mean, I don't keep track of, but we all know that the vaccine supply varies from country to country, from continent to continent. So that's still playing a part in how much money can be made out of these movies. So with the pandemic and with the China element, plus with the avenue of being able to see it on Disney Plus if you want to pay for it, or pirate it if you want, because of that Disney Plus window. You can actually, some people have been able to pirate that beautiful screen image and just pirate
real
it.
Good quality pirates.
Absolutely. So it's like, with all of that mixed together, and sure, the film's quality in and of itself can definitely play a part in this as well, where it ain't that rewatchable as other Marvel movies. When you mix all of that together, you get what you get with this. And that's where we are right now. Now, Johansson's representation is arguing that, so, be that as it may, she still has not been given the money that she was promised. And so her team is arguing that they want a cut, not so much out of the money from the Premier Access element of Disney Plus. They are arguing that because the movie is being used for the purpose of increasing the subscription numbers for the streaming service Disney Plus, they should get a cut out of Disney Plus itself.
God damn.
Which, right?
No wonder Disney was so much like, hey, fuck you.
Which, that's the other part in which, the Disney company that same day released a statement that was really aggressive in and of itself, calling her sad and saying that she had no merit whatsoever to argue this, and used the pandemic to call Johansson insensitive. And saying that, basically implying that they had no choice but to release this film on streaming because of the pandemic.
They should have implied that, she'd wanted to play Black and Asian characters in the film, but they had to tell her no.
All that being said, many people took to Twitter and kind of blast Disney for slamming Johansson like this, and then also calling them hypocrites because, all of a sudden the excuse of a pandemic, benefits them where it very much didn't when they kept lobbying the state of California and Florida to reopen the state well in advance before vaccines are widely available in the pandemic. So
for sure, I just like if every creator,
yeah, that's the thing. This is the Pandora's box
had claim to Disney Plus subscriptions,
there'd be no Disney Plus.
There would be no Disney Plus, because at that point, like, every star ever, right? Like, ever. Dwayne Johnson, and he'd get himself a huge cut. Emily Blunt.
Which, real quick, Dwayne Johnson has stood by Disney. It has come to light that Dwayne Johnson, as far as Jungle Cruise, which also is in theaters and in Disney Plus, has said in the last couple of hours that he is also a producer on the film, as he is all of his movies. But he actually apparently has come to light that he was one of the people that was okay or with the film being available on both streaming and in theaters, and he is very much fine with what they decided. What has come to light as far as reports and rumors is that his co-star Emily Blunt, and she's been burned twice technically because of what happened with Quiet Place Part 2 a couple months ago, and now with Jungle Cruise. And then also Emma Stone, who was on Cruella, there were reports out there that they were also considering some legal action over what happens.
Because guess what? Neither of them are Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who owns the world. Like,
literally,
he's not going to give up his his kingdom atop Hollywood for
money.
For this money, because he's already on top. Like
he's already rich. I mean, they're already rich. Let's be real. But
they're all already rich. But he's the king of Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
Throwing around litigation like that would probably put that in peril, and he's not. He's not stupid enough to do that. Whereas with what's her name, she's rich enough.
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson, where she's rich enough where she can throw that around, but also not rich enough where she wouldn't care about, so it's just that sweet spot where you're getting them lawsuits. But no, that's scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
For Disney. Obviously not me, I don't give a shit. Because I'm just thinking about it, right? Like, they're stars, right? But you have all the Disney Plus shows. You could have someone like Tom. I don't think Tom Hiddleston would do it, but he could. If she wins the case, it would be very easy for him to throw a suit in there and get some good money, especially if because his show literally exists to bring subscribers to Disney Plus. He could make a buttload, but then it's like, okay, well, what about directors? What about writers? Would they have any claim to that? What about old TV shows and movies?
Right.
I have no idea how that would work, but like, would they have any claim to that?
It opens up a Pandora's box of limitless opportunities.
Right, in the films, right? Like,
well, primarily, I would think the films, as we stand right now,
mm-hmm.
I think what's most in question is the future of doing what Disney and Warner Brothers have done this year, which is release movies that were, contractually produced with the intent of a theatrical release, with the budget of a theatrical release, and all of that being in the contract, of them simultaneously being in theaters as well as Disney Plus or on a streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe the president of IMAX this past week did say that he feels that Disney is going to turn back into in the exclusivity of a theatrical experience, as well as Warner Brothers.
But he's the president of IMAX.
Of course.
Of course he's going to say dumb shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, like, this could clearly kill Disney Plus, right? Because then they just wouldn't make anything.
It could kill streaming service, which in general...
They wouldn't make shows, they wouldn't make movies,
right.
They wouldn't make...
Which I have to say, on some level, when that thought occurred to me, and I'm sure you share this as well, on some level, that felt like, a nice serving of cosmic justice in a little bit of way. Because remember, all of these assholes stabbed Netflix in the back and turned tail to make their own Netflix. And what irony would it be in the end, at the very end, if they all had to force to be shut down because of this lawsuit? And then what happens then? I mean,
they would take Netflix with them.
Sure. Maybe.
They would take every streaming service with them.
I don't know. That would be hilarious to an extent. But, yeah, it is an interesting situation, though. But I guess to me, what I take out of this is, or I think one of the most interesting aspect is, so Disney has been saying that Jungle Cruise is the last movie that they're going to be doing this with. The Premier Access / theatrical. Do you buy that for a second?
Yeah.
So, does that then dismiss the possibility of them doing this in the future?
Well, if there's the only reason they did it was because of the
COVID,
right? It wasn't because they were making more money. I
Right.
don't believe they're making more money.
Who is making more money right now?
Yeah. No one's making more. Everyone's making less money than they would have.
Everyone's losing
Apparently,
money.
there's
really.
still money being made, but it's just nowhere near.
There's a difference, obviously, between making money and making a profit. And right now, making a profit off of these highly lucrative projects is impossible because of what has happened. Let me bring some attention to these box office numbers that just came out with Jungle Cruise, right? So, and it evidently made like $34-ish million in theaters in North America. but also made an additional, what was it, Peter, 20-some million on Disney Plus. And
yeah,
I have the numbers right here. Let me get them for you right now. And the reason why I bring this up is because, well, Peter just said that he feels that Disney should be, he feels that they're telling the truth when they say that, well, we're not going to be doing this Premier Access anymore. And so what's the case then, right? Why is that so? Well, because it's never really worked. At least not well. It's never really made the amount of money where it actually could be a game changer. Recall all those months ago when they first announced that Mulan would be the first blockbuster to do this simultaneous release. And there was all this like speculation of like, if this thing succeeds, it could monumentally change the way movies are made, how they're released, if it's really successful. It ended up being a complete and miserable failure. And as far as I'm concerned, every single movie as far as the Premier Access Avenue has not really done anything. And so I want to read here a tweet from Disney Newscast that I think was actually a pretty reasonable analysis of what's going on with the Premier Access. So just to clarify here that evidently it made a global gross of $60 million, or 30 million actually, 30 million on Disney Plus. So what he says is Jungle Cruise got 1 million buys on Disney Plus. Sounds great, but consider this. Disney Plus has over 100 million subscribers and approximately 50 million subscribers are USA/Canada/EU/Australia. These are the Premier Access regions, in which case only 2% of subscribers are purchasing Premier Access releases. That doesn't sound popular. Doesn't sound successful in the least if only 2% of your subscription base is bothering with this. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
I guess this case goes somewhere, because I don't think any of them are going to back down. But also, I guess it would be a big case. It'd probably take years.
Personally, like, I don't really care as far as, like, how much more money millionaires get. I do think Johansson is in her right if, you know, she's being screwed. Anybody who's being screwed will want to get theirs, obviously. But I don't know. I always, you know, cherish stories like these because I really enjoy somebody sticking it to Disney. Because they need to have that more often, you know?
They need a little sticking.
They need a little sticking, that's for sure. So, with that being said, there was some other news that happened this week that we wanted to comment on. Bob Odenkirk suffered a heart attack and collapsed on the set of filming the final season of Better Call Saul, which had the whole world collectively worried for the good part of 24 hours until it was revealed that he was okay and that he's going to be okay after going through some recovery, obviously. But that was a couple of scary hours because Bob Odenkirk is a national treasure. He is a beloved individual. And it would have been really sad to have lost somebody like him.
Yeah. I'm really glad he's okay. That would have been, one of the bad ones.
That would have been, yeah, that really would have been. Also, David Ayer, interestingly enough, I don't think we'll ever let this go, to commemorate the release of the new Suicide Squad, apparently has blasted Warner Brothers, saying that the movie he set out to do exists, they'll never release it, but it's great. More or less is what happened.
Okay. I mean, I think I err on the side of directors being able to make, for the most part, being able to make the film they want to make, right? I think that's very important. That being said, everyone claimed that the
Snyder Cut
already existed. It didn't. It still needed to be finished. And then they existed. It was this amazing, I don't know, the greatest film ever made. And then I watched it and it wasn't a good film. It was more coherent, but I don't think Warner Brothers is in the wrong for saying you can't put out a 4-hour blockbuster. I don't think they're in the wrong for they're in the wrong for the way they a million other things and the way they handled it, because the film that they put out in theaters was much worse. But it wasn't. I don't know what to tell you. And the same thing here. I'm sure David Ayer's cut is not finished, and I'm sure David Ayer's cut is would it to be finished would be a better film than the one released, for sure, no doubt about it. At the same time, it probably wouldn't be that great either. Yeah, the same with Zack Snyder. I'm always going to support directors being able to complete their vision and put out the film that they set to make. But I don't got rose-tinted glasses about the situation. It's like, oh, Warner Brothers, if they had just let them finish, it would have won 2 Oscars that night. One for costumes and one for Best Picture, you know. No, I don't.
Hilariously enough, if you recall,
makeup?
the original movie, the original Suicide Squad, did win an Academy Award for makeup.
It was makeup, god damn it. I thought it was costume. So yeah, I feel for him. I do, right? Because that's got to be such a stressful, shitty situation.
And I'm sure it kind of derailed his career.
Yeah, I'm sure it did in some way. And maybe that's why he feels open to just throw this shit out there, right? Especially because imagine your career's completely derailed, and it's in a situation where, you know, people look at your film and they make fun of it and they talk shit about it, and you feel the same. Like, those just aren't the things you wanted in your film. You know, you didn't want this plot point. You didn't want it to be edited this way. I think he even said there was 0 pop songs in his cut of the film, which I believe him, which is pretty fucking hilarious when you think about the film that we got. But I mean, yeah, it's suffice to say, you go back and you look at that first trailer for the Suicide Squad. It was like some Comic-Con trailer. I remember it was such a different tone than from the rest of the trailers that came out, because I guarantee you the DC brass were like, just make us our Guardians of the Galaxy film, and they got their wish.
Remind me, that original Comic-Con trailer that came out, was that the one that had the Bohemian Rhapsody song in it? No, okay.
It's one before that.
So the Bohemian Rhapsody trailer, that was the one that they used to base off the editing, basically.
Yes. I think when that trailer blew up, they're like, make that movie. And he was probably like, I didn't make that movie. And
it's already shot. What are you talking about?
It's already shot. We're going to release it. They're like, shot, schmott, you know, we'll fix it in editing. Just try and make that movie with whatever time you have left. Yeah, no, so I do feel for him. I really, really do. And if he could get his edit out in the world, I would totally support that, right? But just from like a personal point of view, yeah, I don't know. I don't got rose-tinted glasses about the situation.
He said, I put my life into Suicide Squad. I made something amazing. My cut is intricate and emotional journey with some bad people who are shit on and discarded. A theme that resonates in my soul. The studio cut is not my movie. Read that again. And my cut is not the 10-week director's cut. It's a fully mature edit by Lee Smith, standing on the incredible work of John Gilroy. It's all Stephen Price's brilliant score, with not a single radio song in the whole thing. It has traditional character arcs, amazing performances, a solid third act resolution. A handful of people have seen it. It ultimately, like, do I have any interest in seeing it? If it's out, I'll see it, sure. Am I going to be pushing for it? No, not really. Especially since I'm never going to get an actual movie that'll be good. And as far as all of this, what this amounts to is just such empathy for this man, who is just basically, his career has been collateral damage to all of the fuckery the executives at the studio did to get this movie to be what they thought people wanted, and then it comes out and it's a fucking disaster.
Yeah. The villains is usually are, not all the time, but a lot of the times, is the executives, right?
Yeah.
Because it's one thing if a director comes in and then starts changing the game, while they're making it. But if you hire a director, at some point, I assume you have a meeting where you sit down and go, this is the film we would like to see. And the director says, well, this is the film I would like to make. And then you determine if you guys share the same vision for a film. And if it turns out yes, you hire them. And if it turns out no, then no. Like, I feel like this is the most basic part of, I don't know, filmmaking, hiring.
Yeah.
But WB seems to fuck that up quite a bit, especially with these DC films. So yeah, I think I even read a quote about what's his name, the one that directs the not Jason Bourne, the Mission Impossible films.
McQuarrie?
Is it McQuarrie? It might be him. Is it Christopher McQuarrie? Right?
The recent Mission Impossible films you're referring to?
Yes.
I do believe it's that.
Okay.
What do you say?
I believe it was him, because remember him and what's his name became real buddy.
You're correct. It is Chris McQuarrie.
Chris McQuarrie. The Superman actor. I forgot his name.
Cavill.
Henry Cavill. Remember, they got all buddy when they worked together on one of the Mission Impossibles. And I guess him, Christopher McQuarrie, and Henry Cavill went to DC and he pitched them a Superman movie, right? I assume when they work together, because a lot of those actors do that, right? They find actors that they like, and then they grab those actors and be like, hey, come direct my big tentpole films, right? And he probably felt that with Christopher McQuarrie, and I guess Christopher McQuarrie even said he pitched them their Superman film, him and Henry Cavill's, and no bite. and I think his exact quote was like, they were more interested in me fixing the shit that they wanted and less interested in my ideas and pitches. Basically, they wanted me to fix the mess they had created instead of, and weren't really even interested in the movie he was trying to sell them. And I mean, look at it now. Now they don't even have a Superman. Good job, WB. You don't have any problems to fix. Because you don't got a Superman. You don't got a Superman movie. You pissed your problems away. Good job. You did it. I'm proud. So, yeah. No, I guess bringing it back to David Ayer. No, I do have a lot of sympathy for his situation. And, yeah, I don't think he's ever going to see that cut made. But I hope he gets work soon, continues with his career.
It's about time. Let's move on and get him something else. It's just a shame because he was one of those up and comers. He was a rising star. Then this shit happened and it kind of derailed everything. And that's not fair. It happens to a lot of filmmakers, unfortunately. I know one that never really quite recovered, and we've been trying to get to see his movie for a while, but we haven't had the chance to, and that is Old, M. Night Shyamalan, which apparently in Shyamalan fashion is quite polarizing.
Quite polarizing, yeah.
And I want to see it, but we haven't had the chance to. We were going to see it, but then we sacrificed that movie for something else. Which, by the way, one of the positive things that have come out of the pandemic in terms of us going to the movies, we're doing double features a lot more often now, and I quite enjoy that.
Yeah, it's fun. We had an adventure film double feature.
What was hilarious is that we weren't the only ones. I saw a couple of people on Twitter that were like, they did the exact same double feature we did, which was The Green Knight and Jungle Cruise.
It's a wild double feature.
Isn't it?
I thought it was fun.
Yeah. So with that being said, let's go ahead and transition on to the movies we're talking about. And you know what? Let's talk about the films in the order that we experienced them. That should give Peter
I'm just glad you chose.
Yeah. That'll give Peter the time necessary to get the official synopsis from the Letterboxd app. The movie we're talking about first is The Green Knight, which is the latest feature from A24. What is it?
Hold on.
A24's new movie, which in typical A24 fashion has received a C+ cinema score from the audiences. For those who are not aware, cinema score is basically this survey that is asked of moviegoers coming out of the movie and telling them how they would grade the movie from an F to an A. And historically speaking, while A24 is regarded as this auteur studio and is celebrated by critics,
God damn it.
Audiences often do not care in the least for many of their films. And I mean mainstream audiences in particular. So the fact that it got a C+ cinema score, many people are actually celebrating that fact. I think if you recall, Hereditary, one of the films that is beloved by our group and by a lot of circles in critics groups, was thrashed in a cinema score. They got a D. A D.
You're going to have to look it up on your end. My phone's acting up.
Uh-oh.
I can't load shit.
Well, Peter, I think Letterboxd is having a moment.
Is it not loading on yours either?
It kicked me out. What the hell? I just literally tried opening my app, and it's not doing anything. This is a first. I don't remember this ever happening before. Let me see if I can... Oh, okay. So I just accessed the website online, and it says that Letterboxd is taking a short break between rounds. They are down for schedule maintenance. They'll be back soon. I don't know what the fuck that means, but it means at the moment we're not going to be able to access our synopses for these films, which have become so synonymous with our reviews as of late. So I quite frankly am at a loss for what to do now.
I guess we'll go old fashioned. We'll hit Wikipedia. Right. I thought it was my Wi-Fi fucking up, but
no.
I guess it's
no.
It was not. We're gonna go old fashioned. We're gonna hit the wiki. It'll be a different type of synopsis, but you'll get an idea.
Yeah. Yeah, just to give you all an idea of what this is.
The Green Knight is a 2021 American epic medieval fantasy film written, edited, produced, and directed by David Lowery. The film stars Dev Patel as Gawain, a newly appointed knight from King Arthur's Round Table who sets out on a journey to test his courage and face the Green Knight. It is based on the 14th century poem Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, written by Anonymous. No one knows who wrote it. But yeah, we'll say that's our synopsis for The Green Knight.
Yeah.
Sir Gawain and the Green. So I'm excited about this one. You go ahead, Alexis. Run free.
Well, yeah. So there's a lot of things that need to be stipulated first. Again, just to remind audiences about where we stand with this studio A24. In our previous films that we've discussed alongside this. So, as I just alluded to before the fact, this studio has a very complicated relationship with mainstream audiences, for the most part.
A hate-hate relationship.
Basically, it's a hate-hate relationship. Peter Martinez, on the other hand, probably is A24's number one fan. I think probably all of their movies in the last couple of years have appeared on Peter's top 10 lists, at least top 20 movies of any given year. I believe one of which actually was number one. I know A Ghost Story was one of your number ones, which was also by the studio. I'm sure there were others.
I think it was top 3, but it was very high up there.
Well,
yes.
A lot of these are. And so I have a more interesting relationship with the studio. Some of the
we
films
got a filthy casual here.
Some of these films that they've made, I've loved. Some of these films that I've made, don't care for. And some of them, I really don't like. And so what I thought would be a helpful way to resituate ourselves here as to where we stand is to just look up their recent movies and to give you a rundown of the ones that I have seen, which I'm sure are less than what Peter has seen. And to kind of like just give a quick update as to what my overall feelings were with them. So the last couple of movies was Minari, which I liked. On the Rocks, that was Sofia Coppola's movie on Apple TV Plus, which was okay. Boys State was a movie that I actually really liked, but Peter fucking hated.
Yeah.
It was a documentary movie.
That's fair, yes.
So then we get to Uncut Gems.
Oof. A classic. You know that's getting a Criterion Collection release?
I saw.
Beautiful. This is how I win.
This film has quite the following. I fucking hated it. I couldn't stand watching this movie. There's a review on it somewhere online on our feed. The sound of Adam Sandler's voice in that movie made me want to kill myself. And the film was just not... Yeah, I know a lot of people are thinking to themselves, how dare you fucking call yourself somebody that likes movies? I didn't like this movie at all. Then there was, and I'm talking about the ones that I've seen. So then, you see, basically they're hit and miss for me. We just said that there were 2 that I liked, and then I really didn't like Uncut Gems. And then we get to the fucking Lighthouse, which I still don't know what the fuck to make about that thing.
Perfect film. A perfect film.
There is greatness in that movie. Too bad I don't care at all about anything that happens there. But it was...
Sorry it's not Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Clearly. So those 2, man, those are 2 big misses from me. Although, there was The Farewell, which I love The Farewell. By Lulu Wang and had Awkwafina in it. Beautiful movie. Then, here's another one that I actually really liked, but was quite horrifying, and this was Midsommar.
Yeah. That was a fun watch.
That actually was the last, before this one, which was Green Knight, that was the last A24 film we saw in theaters. Yeah. Together.
Alone.
Yeah. Yeah, there were some people that walked in that theater for Green Knight, and I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck are you doing?
You're not going to enjoy the...
We'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah. Just give me a sec here to see the other movies that I've seen. Oh, 8th Grade. Phenomenal movie. Horror. It's a great horror movie, but it's a phenomenal film. Great movie. Hereditary.
Same thing.
The same thing, basically. It's like I even, encountered somebody this week that said, it wasn't even a good movie. They couldn't even tell me why or what the reason was for. No one ever really goes into reasons for why. It's a blanket statement, and
it's always, it's dumb.
Yeah. But the thing is, this film is hated from mainstream audiences, but it was one of my favorite movies of 2018.
Oh, it gave me a shock in the movie theater. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Disaster Artist was okay.
Yeah, it was okay.
It was good, but relatively medium. Lady Bird, that was really fun. That was delightful. I love Saoirse Ronan, Beanie Feldstein, Laurie Metcalf, and of course it was written and directed by Greta Gerwig. It was a really wonderful movie. I love her movies. There are other movies that I'm seeing her that you have seen that I probably have avoided for a very good reason. Like, I'm looking at movies like First Reformed, Mid-90s, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, The Florida Project, Good Time, Ghost Story, Those
Mhm.
I'm sure you've seen all those.
Yes.
Okay. And how do those rank? Do you love? Is there an A24 film you've come across that you haven't liked?
I mean, we've talked about a few of them. Like go back to the very beginning.
I'm going there right now, real quick. Moonlight.
They'd
That was a great movie.
yeah.
However,
Oh no.
how the fact that everybody that I encounter, especially on social media spaces, just like this is also just a blanket statement where everybody was like, "Well, of course it deserved to win Best Picture. Of course it was better than La La Land." Even by people who prefer La La Land. And I don't get it. It confounds me to no end.
Too gay for you, huh?
Oh,
Is that why you hated Jungle Cruise?
oh, I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
The Witch, which is a favorite of yours, is a
Witch,
favorite
yes.
of Kyle's, and a good friend of mine, Nettie Valdez, who hates it with a passion.
Mhm.
That was hilarious. Ex Machina was wonderful. I loved it. Alicia Vikander,
It's really good.
Domhnall Gleeson, Oscar Isaac, great movie. I think it also won visual effects at the Academy Awards, if I'm not mistaken, one year. And I'm looking at the very beginning of it, and that's at least where I stop. But the first couple of movies I released were from 2013 in the early 2010s. A Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Swan III, Ginger and Rosa, Spring Breakers, The Spectacular Now, Under the Skin, Tusk.
Under the Skin, fantastic.
Tusk. I did not know that was
Tusk,
A24.
yeah,
that was
They had some weird ones at the
Yeah.
beginning.
a
That's
most
saying
violent
something
year.
for A24.
That is true. Because oh my god, there was a trailer that we saw for The Green Knight. Of course, it ended up being A24. That trailer about that
Wonderful.
that lamb child, you will not get me to watch that movie. That was beyond unsettling. And I know where that's going. I am not watching that film.
I don't know
Fuck
where it's going.
That. It's going into a territory where it's going to deeply disturb me.
Do
and
you
I don't
think
want
there will
that.
be a 10 minutes in of him fucking that lamb? To produce a lamb child?
No, I don't know. Anyway,
It's A24. Nothing's off the table.
you were saying, man.
We haven't even started reviewing it. You're losing it. I think the point of your whole little rant here, going
It's
through
not
the
a
history
rant.
of A24.
It's not a rant.
You say potato, I say potato.
It's an instructive summary of where we have been and where we are.
I guess what I feel is the point of you saying all that was to inform everyone that A24 is awesome and they make great films. Of which I agree.
Yeah.
A24 is great.
Mm-hmm. I know Peter's giving me that look as like, that's not what you were trying to say, but that literally is what I was trying to say. They do make great films, and they do make films that I love. But the overall point was they also make films that I don't care about. They do make quite a bit of those. That
Yes.
isn't to suggest that's how I feel about this one, but just to reiterate and recap where we have been. We don't always agree on an A24 movie.
No, we do not. That is very clear. Which
So I
brings
guess-
us to David Lowery's The Green Knight.
Yes, and I guess this is my first film of his. I didn't see the Pete's Dragon film he made for Disney a few years ago.
By the way,
yes.
he is still scheduled to make Peter Pan and Wendy for Disney Plus.
Ah,
A film.
is he?
Yeah.
Okay. That should be something. Now you
Right?
saw Pete's Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't. So
Yeah.
as somebody, both we generally agree that Disney live action films are garbage. Although I tend to like some of them more than you do. You seem to like none of them lately, or at all.
No.
That one, you seem to okay or enjoy okay.
Oh, yeah, no, that's a good film.
I haven't seen that one yet. Maybe I should check it out.
Mm-hmm.
But not when that was one of the ones I missed or skipped because I just had no interest. I had no attachment to the original
because
property.
No one has any attachment to the original Peach Dragon.
Why they made that, I don't even know.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's such a random one to pick. I, of course, did. But I'm the only one in the world.
Right.
So, but yeah, no. That one was actually a film.
And then I also did not see his previous work with A24, and that would be Ghost Story, which was among your favorite films of the year that it came out.
Yes, I love that film.
So, that brings us to The Green Knight. And
I feel like you're stalling.
I'm not stalling. I am trying to make sure everyone is wired the way that I would hope that they are with this background. This movie is... I haven't made up my mind ultimately like where it, stands as far as A24 movies are concerned. But you'll be happy to know that this one stands closer to the movies that I really enjoy and love from A24 than it does from the films that I genuinely have a distaste for. So
disdain.
That's
more like it.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, because there very much is disdain there. Thank you. But there isn't here. I really like the movie. First and foremost, it has a way of itself that isn't... It has a way of itself that isn't quite the kind of movie that I usually end up either revisiting or
watching it all.
Maybe. But let's just say in the event that I have seen movies like these kind of films genuinely don't lend itself to a rewatchability factor for me. Now, does that say that I don't think about the movie at all afterwards? No, because it's been staying with me in a way that I actually dismissed while I was watching the movie. I'll be honest with you.
You're probably like, all right, fucking end.
At some points, let's be real, at some points I was, but for other reasons. By the ultimate account of it all, I have to say that my feelings toward the film are very much in a positive light. And I do like the movie. Do I have a particular passion for it as others I've seen? No, not necessarily speaking. But I do want to say this. In regards to what we had mentioned earlier about people walking into the movie when we had gone to theaters to go see it. I know the people of my community. We are very much
Mr. College-educated elitist
journalist. I know the people of my community as well as you do, fellow elitist Martinez.
Yes.
We know that our lovely Imperial Valley is a great microcosm for the tastes all around the country and all around the world for what general audiences want out of films, out of movies. And that oftentimes comes into conflict with other movie fans who are much more about, a different way of what film is supposed to be, what cinema, as they say, is supposed to be.
Cinema.
Exactly.
Like the late, great Martin Scorsese.
Oh, my God. So oftentimes, I should say, both of those audiences just do not connect. They do not click. And so when I saw people walking into this movie, I was thinking to myself, what are you doing? You know you're not going to like this. Like, what movie do you think you're getting? And I have to be honest. I don't know if maybe A24 is too good at tricking people with their trailers, because, again, when we experienced this trailer, this is probably an action adventure. And look, this is an adventure of sorts. There ain't much action. People love the action in any movie whatsoever. And so I was thinking initially, I don't know what these people are going to do. And then as the movie was unfolding, I was like, I think I heard some snoring. Off in the distance? I'm not going to lie. I think I did hear somebody snore off in the distance. And then I noticed as the film was progressing, several people walking in and out for breaks, presumably bathroom breaks or maybe to wake the fuck up. I think some people just walked out and didn't come back, if I'm not exaggerating there. but I did keep note of that. This is the quintessential example of what is known as a work of art in film. And that very much it is. It is a beautiful movie to look at. There are some very interesting and very thought out camera angles. And as far as the production design is concerned and the overall vibe about it, it definitely lulls you. It kind of does suck you in. And I will say, maybe to a fault at times, because I feel like I enjoy this movie, and thinking about it after the fact, I really do like and appreciate it, but in a similar way as another film. I wouldn't say I like it quite as much as this other movie, but it had a similar effect on me where, and I'm talking about Phantom Thread, from Paul Thomas Anderson a couple years ago. And that is...
You hated that film.
I did not hate that movie. I give it a positive review. It was a great movie. It happened to put me to sleep, but that being the case, I still thought it was great. And so what I'm saying, that the Green Knight may lull you to a fault at times, is there were invariably moments where I caught myself, oh God, falling asleep. And look, I know you say while we were sitting in that theater that you were sweating your ass off. I don't know. I was cold, and I felt cold watching that movie. Like literally, like I'm talking about like actual sheer like cold, and like I was felt like I was like it was like a lullaby at times because of how, look, the film is intentionally dreamlike in places, but maybe to a fault. Sometimes if you're not careful, you may end up like nodding off.
More lullaby than fairy tale.
Well, it is. I would say it qualifies as that, though. It is a fantasy movie. It is a fairy tale movie. The acting is great. Dev Patel is great. It is just a weird movie. But, and then honestly, there are a lot of things while watching this, I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Some things very much went over my head. First of all, I don't know how I was supposed to know that was King Arthur. So imagine my shock when I realized after the fact that, oh, wait a minute, this is technically a King Arthur movie because he's in there. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess there's that.
You didn't know that?
No. How was I supposed to know that?
He handed him Excalibur.
You mean a sword?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh my God. You didn't see Merlin there? Okay, whatever.
He is?
Yes.
They never say his name. How was I supposed to know? I'm not exactly a King Arthur enthusiast or a specialist in that regard, so of course it would go over my head.
It literally starts the very beginning of the movie. The voiceover talks about the boy who took sword from stone, the king, but then the voiceover goes on to say this isn't his tale, this is the tale of another. In the beginning of the film, you have the voiceover, and it's slowly going forward, and he's sitting atop the throne.
Well, maybe if it had subtitles,
on fire.
I don't know.
They talk about the boy who took the sword from the stone, but like this isn't the story about him. This is the tale of another, and the another being Sir Gawain. Gawain. Yeah, no, I thought it was pretty explicit, but okay. They were literally at the knight's table, the round table. You notice how it was fucking round?
I didn't catch that either. All of these quote-unquote references went over my head completely. But don't worry, I got all the Jungle Cruise references that I'm sure you missed.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's real culture right there.
I know. No, man, I dug it. This is weird. And I think it had a really solid ending. It had a great ending to the point where I was like, you know what? Okay. There may have been times where I thought, okay, what the fuck is the point? Where are we with this? But by the end of it, I'm like, you know what? Maybe it ain't that kind of movie, as they say. It ain't the kind of movie that gives a fuck about what point you think this may have or where this is going. It is very methodical. And when people say that word, rest assured it means slow. And here's the key again, in terms of the taste of general audiences. They have this unfortunate precleption for conflating slow with bad. and
boring.
Or boring. And unfortunately, I'm thinking just by myself experiencing the film, that's going to come across that way to a lot of people. So be warned. If you don't, I want people to know. Look, I want people to enjoy movies. But also, if you're not that kind of person that likes these kind of movies, just don't watch it.
Yeah, because I don't like people. I'm torn, right? Because I want this movie to make money.
Right.
So maybe the more people that are tricked, the more
like
money
Mother or Hereditary, you mean?
Yeah. But on the other hand, I don't want people to have like a shitty movie experience.
Yeah.
And people know, like, if they're not going to be into it, they're not going to be into it. And they shouldn't watch it, right? They shouldn't watch it just to be pissed off there for 2 hours or walk out, you know? So, like, this is a film I wouldn't just recommend, like, oh, it's a great film, everyone go watch it. I would be like, it's a great film. Here are the caveats. If you feel up for it,
yeah,
then by all means go watch it, right? But I wouldn't just be like, everyone run to the theater. No.
It's not a crowd pleaser, and it's not trying to be. This is very much trying to be, I mean, it's an auteur. It is a work of art. He is crafting something here that for many people may consider to be experimental. This is the kind of movie that I like to go back, read pieces on, re-examine the film, figuring out exactly what each parts of it mean exactly, because obviously film is open for interpretation. There are a lot of things that, you know, you could decide for yourself what the fuck it all means. But ultimately, I can definitely see why people love the movie. I dug it ultimately. Maybe there were some points where I was a little annoyed with how slow. I've heard, though, his other movie is much slower. And there are longer takes, because there are some takes where, man, like we are just watching. This is one take, this long take where Dev Patel is on a horse and he's walking away from the kingdom, and he's walking, and I'm like, okay,
now cut.
Yeah, but
cut.
And it kept happening and happening and happening. So there were a couple of takes where I'm like, okay, this doesn't need to be this long.
You know what's funny about that? From what I've read, this film opened at some festival probably over a year ago or something.
Oh,
like
did
that.
it?
And of course, it got rave reviews.
In the before times, you mean?
In the before times. And, but David Lowery was not happy with it. So he went back and made it even longer. Made it slower paced. And then that's the film we watched.
The film, by the way, is 2 hours and 10 minutes long.
Yes. I'm not ashamed to admit, I think I'd like that first cut better.
Yeah. I wonder if it'll be made available.
Never. Because he wasn't happy with it.
Right.
It's like The Shining.
That's right.
Do you remember The Shining? It opened. It played.
Yeah.
And then, what's his name? Stanley Kubrick was like, never mind, I don't like the ending. So he demanded they send back the film. And then he changed it.
Hilariously, didn't Tom Hooper try and do that with Cats a couple of years ago?
I don't even think Tom Hooper did that. I think just the studio did that. Like, and the change was just like slightly better CGI.
Sure.
So weird. But like at that point, I would say, fuck it, it's Cats, it's in theaters, it's bombing. Why do we care? Like, let's move on. But
release the butthole cut.
Release the butthole. That's the only reason. I want Tom Hooper to release his side of the story. A long ass Twitter thread about how he fought for the butthole cut and he lost. And now everyone's like, release the butthole cut. No.
Do you know how much longer he made the movie, Lowery?
No idea.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, it's a gorgeous film. I did think though, and I don't know if there was an issue with our projector in the theater. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. And I guess it may have been intentional, but I know the lighting on this movie is very dim.
The night scenes are practically.
I know.
You cannot. It's practically...
And I'm not going to lie, it did kind of bother me at moments because I really wish I could have seen more of it. I mean, I guess it was all to serve a purpose, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But...
I think it was knowing these goddamn auteurs.
Yeah.
It's probably about authenticity, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is how dark it was back then, right? So why would we provide fake extra lighting?
Maybe. That sounds exactly what one of those people would say.
Yeah.
To give you the full cinematic experience.
It's the authentic. Should I say what I felt about the film?
Yeah, I think it's time for you to say what you thought about it.
This was easily second most anticipated film of the year.
Oh.
No, wait. Maybe third. We might be seeing my second next week.
Boss Baby?
No, that was Boss Baby's already out. It's not already out?
Yeah. It is. I was just...
Oh, God.
I was trying to pull a Peter.
I got worried there. That's my fourth favorite. Okay.
Okay.
Fourth most
Well, what about Sing 2?
Sing 2?
Remember that trailer? Sing 2? I didn't even know they were making a Sing 2. You sing hard.
I fucking hate Illumination. And that shit always works, guys. Oh my God. Every time we see an Illumination trailer in a packed house, it fucking kills.
It kills.
And then I want to die. It kills every goddamn
Sometimes
time.
it kills even harder than the Disney trailers.
Yeah. Oh, God. Okay, anyway. The Green Knight, top 3 at least, right? If not higher. So, I was very worried, like you mentioned before, that we wouldn't get this film in the Valley. Luckily, it had night in the name, so it came out here. And I was very excited. We swapped out old to see this one, to do our double feature. And again, I thought it fit better with the double feature, right? Two wasn't very different adventure films.
In some ways, it was an easy call, but then it also did hurt because I did want to see the Shyamalan movie, and I still do.
Yes, I'm very interested because it's very, very mixed.
It is.
So that'll be interesting.
Then again, so are most of his movies.
There are the good ones. There's a couple mixed, and the rest people shit hard on. So yeah, I was very excited, but I also knew what kind of film it was because I've seen his other films before. Mm-hmm. So I know his pace of films, and Snails would tell him to hurry the fuck up.
What about Turtles?
Maybe he's on the same level of Turtles. Maybe slightly slower. So I was a little worried just because, like, I was tired. I had just woken up because I'd worked all night, and like even before the movie started, my eyes were like, when I'm really tired, my eyes get like dry, and I'm like, oh fuck. And I knew it was a slow movie, like it was a whole thing. But I walked away from the film really, really loving it. I really did. You compared it.
Let's be honest, it's up your alley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much. Well, one, I love fantasy. I love that genre. This is like art house fantasy, basically, which is a wonderful meshing of genres, I guess you would say. And it kind of reminds me a little bit, although that other film I would argue is more mainstream, although maybe not by much, considering how much money it made. Like Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, no. Well, it was not. It was not. No, like the film was a disaster. Look, the performance of that movie is why, unfortunately, to your dismay, why I've already written off Dune.
Don't do that to me.
Because it's a sci-fi epic. It looks beautiful. It's going to be a great movie. Did I just say it's going to be a great movie? Sorry, I did not mean to do that.
It's going to be a great movie.
Oh my God, it's a great pizza.
We cook the pizza.
Okay. Sure, that trailer and that perhaps lends itself to have a much more mainstream sensibility, as I see where you're going with this. But in reality, nobody gave a fuck about that movie.
Yes, but it was also a very slow film, right? And it was this, it by all appearance, it was this.
Oh yeah, that movie also, real quick. I remember watching that movie also in theaters. There was also a period where I caught myself nodding off. But thankfully, Hans Zimmer's Bois blasted me the fuck away. I remember...
The choirs didn't wake you up in this film?
No, it was the Bois. It was the Bois.
There was no Bois. It was choirs.
There was a Bois. There were Bois.
There was some Bois.
Yeah.
But with that film, I think on its surface, it would seem like this mainstream science fiction action film, and it's actually just a very slow, contemplative drama / character piece that happens to be in a science fiction world, right?
Right.
This sort of takes that aesthetic, takes the genre and really the themes of the genre and really runs with it in a more artsy fashion.
And so many of those movies are not made that way. And so when people go watch them, they feel cheated after seeing what they're getting.
Yes. And I feel this film was similar in that. It sort of kind of comes off as like a fantasy action adventure, and it's not. It takes the aesthetics of that, it takes the themes and plays with that, but it's again similarly more of an drama character piece within an artsy version within, you know, the tapestry of fantasy, and I love it. I think that's great. I think that's cool. It's how do I put this? It's obviously not above criticism. Like I'll tell you, yeah, I think it is too slow. I think there are some things that 100% could have been cut down on. I will say the beginning I thought was really good. I thought it was paced really well. Everything in the beginning, it was slow, but it was engaging. It was engaging. I think it was moving. Even though it was a slow pace, I thought it was the right pace.
Right.
And it wasn't until he went on his quest where there was some moments where it's like, yes, those are trees. I know.
That's really where it starts for me. Those are, especially at that point and going forward, there are moments where I thought to myself, yeah, and I guess this is just a thing for me, but a lot of the film, because of its very nature, because it's very methodical, because it's very contemplative, especially with this lead character, there's not a lot of room for dialogue. And I love dialogue. I thrive on it. And a lot of the movie after that is kind of quiet and no dialogue, and a lot of images, beautiful images. But I for me anyway, that was part of it, mixed with some shots being too long, some scenes a little too slow. All of that mixed together made me feel a little, oh okay, we're still here. So, again, I liked it. To be clear about that.
I mean, I just, for me, because it was so wrapped up in the trappings of a classic fairy tale adventure,
sure,
it really clung to me, I guess, right,
yeah, so, absolutely.
So of course the beginning with the music and, you know, old King Arthur and the knights, this big fancy green, like, he's like a monstrosity. Like the makeup and the effects were really cool. It was really good. Everything with him, there's fucking witchcraft going on.
Oh yeah, giants.
There's giants.
Talking
there's a quest,
foxes.
Talking foxes. A ghost.
Oh yeah.
He helps a ghost at one point. There's so much of that I'm just and the world feels like it's filled with magic.
It is, yeah.
And it's I love that shit, and it really just pulls me in, right?
While also being grounded in a certain sense of realism, you know?
Yeah. No, it's not. When I say it's filled with magic, I'm talking about like that old-fashioned magic, where not Disney magic.
Right.
I'm talking, original grim fairy tale magic.
Yeah, some fucked up things going on. That's for sure.
Yeah, where fucking, I don't know, right? A troll will come by and murder your whole family.
Oh yeah.
And then eat you and boil you and peel your skin off, like that kind of. But it's also very beautiful, magic.
Right.
And it's all, again, visually stunning.
Yeah.
Incredibly stunning. No matter what, it'll probably be easily the most beautiful film of the year. There's so much about it. But it was, I think it was by the time they got to the castle, which, by the way, beautiful castle. Even you were like, that's Hogwarts?
Oh, yeah.
But it was around there where it's just like, keep moving.
Keep moving. Yeah.
But funnily enough, I think that's also where the film started to come full circle.
Sure, yeah.
And I felt like everything with the character and the themes of the film and everything that's going on. And it's funny because I feel like the ending lost. For the people that ended up disliking it and who stuck for it all through the entire thing, they say like, yeah, that ending is where they lost them. They're like, oh, come on, what the fuck is this shit? And for me, the ending is where I'm like, oh my God, I love this.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. The ending won me over. Yeah.
I thought it was great. And I guess, spoilers for a 14th century poem. that's because it does stick fairly close to the original poem.
Right.
Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
I don't know anybody who will read the poem.
That's true. No one's actually read the poem, but whatever. It's existed for hundreds of years. Spoilers, I guess, for shit that's existed for hundreds of years. When the way the original poem works is that they obviously don't do a flash, a vision sequence. It's just what happens is the man who was in the castle was also turned out to be the Green Knight.
Ah, okay.
Yes, and he gives him, he does take his swing, but he only nicks him in the back of the neck. And, he basically lets him, he doesn't throw away the sash. He actually holds on to the sash. And he says, I nicked you because, you broke our deal. You were dishonorable. He didn't kill him, but, he nicked him and he kind of sent him back in shame. And it's kind of they say like the knights forgave him, and they all decided to wear a sash, the same green sash around themselves as well. It became like part of the getup for the knights of the Round Table, and It was meant to basically a symbol of like, remember to be honest and stuff, something like that. And while the ending is different, I think it's meant to obviously imbue the same sort of message about honor and what it means to be a knight and what it means to live honorably.
Right.
So I loved that whole vision of how his life would be.
It was amazing.
If he were to run away.
Yeah.
And live dishonorably, and the way it,
and it fooled me. I didn't think that was a vision. I thought it was actually happening in real time.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah, there were a lot of things this movie just. I don't know. I guess like I'm that kind of viewer that doesn't get things immediately, but like no, like when in real time, when it came to that part of the film, I thought we were watching events happen as you know, because there was a choice that was made by Gawain, and these were the real world consequences of that. It didn't occur to me that we were watching a vision. Real quick, before we get back to that, I want to make sure, because I'm not sure if it's been mentioned even in this discussion thus far, and it should be important, about, like, did we even discuss, like, what the main, like, thing is about this movie as far as, like, Gawain is concerned? So he is the nephew, right?
Like the quest, I guess.
Yeah, the quest.
Yeah, he is the nephew of King Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
And
he hungers for some kind of recognition. He hungers for a tale of his own. He wants to be
prove
this
himself.
Yeah, this big and bad knight. That's kind of what he wants. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is they get a knock on the door, of all people, this basically Groot. In a way, you have the Green Knight, who is this mythical tree creature. Right? It almost looks like a cross between Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy and the Night King from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, something like that. Very imposing and scary.
Very scary. That scene when he walks in is beautiful.
The sound design, with every step, it's very...
Oh, the score, very
imposing.
effective as well. I'm not sure if it's been mentioned. The score is very effective. At some points, I was like, okay, shut the fuck up with the squire. But still, in moments...
Yeah, the choir keeps going. I felt bad for their throats. They must have been dying. But yeah, that shit kept going. But he says, you know, King of Kings, let me... Wait, I don't think he called him King. King of Kings is usually when you refer to Jesus. I think he said, "Oh, great King, let us indulge in a friendly game." And the game is just, you know, let one of your knights try and strike me. You know, whether it be, you know, a small nick on the chin or a cut on the arm or as hard a blow as they can. Let them try to strike a blow on me. And if they succeed, they will have my axe. It is theirs to keep, and in a year's time, they must meet me on the same day, you know, at the Green Chapel, and I will strike a similar blow to them. You know, that's basically the game, and everyone else is like, oh, fuck that. But Gawain, being the young idiot that he is like, he jumps to the chance of making a name for himself. And without even thinking about it, he lops off his head. And he thought, well, that's the end of that, you know. And the Green Knight stands up, picks up his head, and reminds him that in a year's time, he will do the same thing to him.
Oops. He walks out of there, and people just, like, go back to what they were doing as if nothing important just happened.
It reminds me of, like, when at, like, a party or something, someone does something really stupid.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone's like, woo, yeah. But then that person just has a broken leg now. And then the party continues, and that person's just laying there with a broken leg.
I mean, basically, he got, like, a death sentence.
Basically, right? And Gawain's just sitting there like, what the fuck? And everyone's like, oh, this is fun. But the, oh god, I loved that whole sequence. Oh, that was so great. And then it ended perfectly with him riding off, carrying his head,
like a headless
maniacally. Horseman. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now that's sort of the internal and external dilemma, where he, in order to be an honorable man and keep his word, he has to go on a great adventure to have his head lopped off. Or he runs away like a coward. You know, those are his two options. Not great options, right? And that's really the struggle that he goes through throughout the entire film. That's the internal dilemma. But there's more to it, because when the movie starts, well, it's not that there's more to it, but there's a lot of great characterization behind it. You know, he's kind of a piece of shit. You know, he's he's the boss's kid, right?
Yes,
basically.
I believe Double Toasted was the one that put it that way. By the way, Double Toasted is one of the best anything out there as far as content is concerned on
They're
YouTube.
my favorite YouTube
anywhere.
channel.
I love anything and everything they talk about. Corey and Martin are some of the most hilarious and honestly, to an extent, insightful people from on movies. I don't always agree with them, but I love to hear what they say. And
they can literally talk about anything.
And for me, it's like I never experienced the same kind of laughter I do from anybody else. Like it is beautiful. I think what really is a work of art from their content are their bad movie reviews.
Oh my god. They are
a gold mine.
I've never laughed so hard as some of their bad movie reviews. They are so funny.
They really are, honestly. So
no,
just
it's insane to me. They're not like
I know
a million sub channel or something like.
They need more and more attention on them. But no, just as a brief aside. But to what you were saying about Gawain, yeah, he's kind of a little bitch.
For sure, yeah.
He wants he's royalty, and he wants to be a respected and great individual without actually having to do any of the work. Not that I think, because in those times it was pretty common for everyone to do this, but it's not exactly in a fairy tale presentation. You're not really a heroic person if you start off the movie waking up in a whorehouse. So there is that, but in real times, everybody was at a brothel. So that's one of those things that seems to always be hypocritical. But in this case,
but not all of them woke up on Christmas Day at a brothel.
That's a special kind of.
That's a special kind of, fucked up. I don't know. But I think at the beginning they did a really good job of setting all that up, right? Because even, when Arthur, tells him to sit with him and he talks about how like, you're my family, but I don't really know you, right? Like, and I'm sad that I don't know you. And I know I've never made much of an effort before, but I want to make one now.
Right.
So that I may know you, tell me a tale of you.
And Sean Harris is very good as King Arthur.
I really liked him.
Very engaging. Mm-hmm. Which also, by the way, as another tangent here, but that was a great scene. Loved his scenes. Loved him in the role, especially with his role, his connection to Gawain, at least in the film. Is this easily the most relevant / example of a King Arthur adaptation to the big screen there has been in ever or in a long time? That doesn't suck? Right.
Oh, okay. You got to add that caveat because they make one every few years.
That's what I meant, the one that doesn't suck. Because we've talked about it on this channel before. Hey, stop making King Arthur movies. Nobody cares about King Arthur anymore. Mm-hmm. Why are you making King Arthur movies?
Well, the trick was not to make a King Arthur movie.
Exactly.
It was to make a Sir Gawain film. It is Sir Gawain is to King Arthur films what Snake Eyes is to G.I. Joe films. See? It's the trick. I know that film failed. That's the joke. Yeah, but no, that's another reason why I love it too, because I love the idea of King Arthur, but it's just there's been so many bad adaptions. It's but this is a legitimately fantastic adapt. Just the world, right? I love the world so much. But what were we even talking about? Oh yeah,
King Arthur, approaches Gawain. I want to get to know you. I don't know you, as you were saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's sort of sad, just sort of I don't have a tale. He's never done anything. He's never accomplished anything. He's there because he's family, kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, so all of that is, I think, set up beautifully in the beginning. And throughout the film, there's a lot of great uh character work, delving into that sort of struggle within him, but that's when it gets very artsy.
Oh yeah.
And there's more stuff open to interpretation, like for instance the brothel woman that he's having commitment issues with is played by Alicia Vikander, who is the same woman in the castle.
Right.
And there's a million things you could say why that is and what that represents and and there's a lot of instances like that, like the ghost that he goes
to stick with her real quick, to stick with Alicia Vikander. I get it after the fact and reading about the movie to what the point of it was there, but all I kept thinking was whenever she was on screen, the second version of Vikander in the castle was, man, she is one horny person, because everything she was saying to Gawain was a come on, like literally, like
speaking of come. I had to. It was there. I'm sorry.
I was afraid. I expect that from Kyle.
I know.
Not from you, which is why I felt comfortable saying that.
You should never feel comfortable.
You disappoint me. Oh, no.
It was too... You made it too... I'm sorry. You made it too easy.
Yes, there's ejaculation in the movie, and you see the remnants, the excrement of it, of there. I wondered, man, was that real? Or was that some kind of... I don't know. I was like...
Yeah, they had the PA do...
Yeah, that's where my mind went and was like, well, you know how these auteurs are. They might want to go for the real thing, you know?
It was the directors. He said, this fake cum will not do. I'm an artist.
Damn it, you derailed what I was... The point is, yes. She was very horny, and then she ends up jerking him off as a way to tempt him, and then she succeeds, and... Then she's fuck off. You're trash.
That's the point, right? Like, I think she literally personifies a weakness of his, which is... And really tempts him to break the vows that a knight would engage with, right? Like,
right.
The virtues that a knight would have, right? And the second that he does it, she literally represents that temptation. And the second that he does it, like she lays it on the line, like, you're no knight, right? Like,
after all that work she did to like, hey, you want to fuck? I mean, literally, how many times did she say that? I mean, basically.
Yeah, and as a knight, it was his duty to say, no, milady, I shall not. But he didn't. So that's why she was like, I knew you ain't shit. Which sucks because the one who really wanted to fuck was what's his name, Joel Edgerton.
Oh yeah, that really threw me for a loop. When like there was a sequence where after that happens, Joel Edgerton sees Gawain leaving, and he basically says he has a gift for him, and then he approaches him and he kisses him, and I'm like, what? That really threw me for a spin. I didn't see that coming. By the way, Edgerton's amazing in this. He's really great.
He's great. He brings life to that whole section of the film. If you know the original poem, it's easier to make sense of it, because in the original poem, it's they have their own little game, right? Where it's like, all day I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna hunt. And whatever I bring back, I will give to you. But whatever you get during the day in this house, you will give to me. And the same thing in the story, she keeps trying to fuck, but he says no, right? And so all she gives him is a kiss. So so for 3 days, he would come back and bring him, the food that he hunted. And he would give him a kiss, because that is what he received. He wouldn't tell him where he got that kiss, but he would just be like, this is what I received today. So he'd give him that kiss. And then on the last day, the third day before he left, that's when she also gave him, the lady of the house gave him the belt that would keep him safe. And he gave him...
You mean the belt that basically ended up being a cum rag?
Yes, the magic belt.
Okay.
Yes. But he didn't... He gave him the kiss on that day, but he did not give him the belt. And that was like the point of his dishonor.
Right, yeah. I see that now. Now I see it because of what happens later.
Yes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense now. See, I love having these discussions. Really great movies do that. Mm-hmm. And I think this is what we're working with here overall. Now, to another, I'm not sure if this is even an appropriate question, but as to the very existential being of those people at that setting in the castle, are they even there? Like, are they even real?
You know what is so great about that, and what I think is so great about fantasy, is that it doesn't matter. It
doesn't. I'm just curious, like, are they even real, or are they, like, part of the construction of the journey getting there? Because my thing is, I don't know, they felt very much like aberrations because of the journey that he is on.
I like to imagine that if he went back that way, the castle wouldn't be there.
Yeah, that's
it. Would just be an empty
lot.
Empty. Well, I guess they didn't have lots back then, but just land, just grass.
A hill, basically.
A hill, yes. That's what I like to imagine.
Yeah.
Which is sort of these magical beings. Well, that kind of comes back to like the whole test itself, in that it was really orchestrated by his mother.
Right, yeah.
Morgenthau, who is a witch. And she...
Apparently witches were allowed back then?
I believe in the King Arthur stories, Morgenthau is King Arthur's half-sister. No. Her whole thing is she's always trying to usurp him in his reign or whatever. She's kind of... I guess she's his Loki. I don't fucking know. Right?
Mother Talzin?
Sure. Yeah. But I think here it was clearly done as sort of a way like, my son's a fuck up. I want him to become a great man, a great knight, a great king. And she sort of concocts this journey in order to get that out of him. I think that's the way I saw it anyway.
Right. I think it would make a lot of sense, because one of the things that was left a bit of a question for me was, what was that whole thing in the beginning when she was clearly performing some kind of ritual / incantation whilst Gawain was on his way, or I guess feasting at the round table with King Arthur on Christmas Day, and then the Green Knight comes.
Well, while she's doing that, she's writing a letter.
Right.
And the letter that she writes is the one that the Green Knight gives.
Okay. I missed that as well. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
The choir really shook up your head, huh?
Man, I don't know. Some things just went over my head. I don't know what happened. Maybe I must have been tired, but yeah. You're putting the pieces together in my mind. So these are things that I was wondering, and now like, oh, okay, I guess that's the answer. That makes sense. Now it makes more sense than it did before. Okay.
But also, like, at the very, very end, right? When after he's kind of like jolted back from like that vision, he throws away the belt. Right? Mm-hmm. And he's ready to die. Like, he's ready for whatever may happen. I gave my word, and this is it. And the knight's like, are you ready? And he's like, yep. And then he leans down and he looks at him in the eyes, and then he finally says, like, my brave knight, you are ready now, and like proud, like happy. And then he's like, all right, now off with your head. right? And then it ends. And I think some people interpreted that as like, and now he's going to cut his head off. And I interpreted that as like sort of a cheeky joke of him just being like, now off with you. You know, you've learned what you set out to learn on this journey. Mm-hmm.
Man, some people are pretty nihilistic.
Yeah.
I didn't get that at all. Like at first I was like, I know you were saying that, but I didn't think, I thought it was pretty clearly understood that like he was being tongue in cheek about that. He wasn't literally going to be like, okay, now I'm going to fucking kill you for reals. I mean, I guess that's a possibility. I guess if you choose to see it that way, sure.
If you want to view the film as a very dark comedy, I guess. But no, it's very much like, I can see it in your eyes, like you've basically learned the lesson of your grand journey, right? Like now return home. And like I said, I'd like to imagine that if he goes the same way of the castle's gone. But no, that's the way I viewed the film. And while it's beautiful and there's a lot of interpretive imagery, and there's obviously layers to the film, I actually found it on its surface pretty accessible as far as the theme and message.
Sure.
Because there's some films where you watch and you're like, that was awesome. I think it's about that.
Yeah, and honestly, like, for most of the movie, like, I understood exactly as far as like, all right, what it was setting up for Gawain. Mm-hmm. When I got to the core center of the film, it really did kind of get away from me, where I was like, okay, so what is all of this amounting to? Because for me, it's like, okay, clearly with films like this, a director, what is there? Some films have no point. Some films do have an arc that they set up, and as far as the characterization for Gawain, it should be pretty clear as to where it's going to go. But for a lot of the movie, it kind of really, throws you off balance, because at least how most audiences are trained to think, it's like, okay, but what is the point of all this? You're questioning things left and right. But for me, the ending kind of brought it back around, and we're like, okay, this is where. So like for me, when you first asked me what did the ending really mean for me, the first answer I give you was like, oh, nothing matters. Well, I said that because like there is a turning point in the film where Gawain reneges on what he's supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And from that moment forward, we see a time lapse, basically. Not in the traditional sense, but we see the years of his life flowing by.
See, you should have noticed that something was wrong, because all of a sudden it was paced much quicker.
You know what? Yeah. I should have realized it, but I didn't. But a lot of, we see a fast forward of sorts, and the entire time, at least it was very effective to me. I guess it was understood by most people, but I thought that was actually what was happening. And we're getting to an end where he's basically, there's a war, his castle is being shelled, they're all about to die, and then all of a sudden we snap back to the moment where he is confronting the Green Knight. And I'm like, oh, I feel stupid. I did not catch that whatsoever. This is basically a vision of what would have happened if he had run away from this confrontation. Whereas before, he was very squeamish, very much not in the mood to die or accept any kind of fate or any kind of courage whatsoever. This case, he finds the courage within himself to be better, to be honorable, as they say. He accepts his faith, and I guess it all makes sense, because one of the questions I had to myself was like, okay, why is everyone around him, literally everyone, not just the apparitions, but also, King Arthur, his family, why are they all so blasé about this? Like, you'd think that they'd be a little bit more concerned about sending off a family member to his own presumed death of being beheaded by this Green Knight. And so I often found myself wondering, why do they all, I don't know, seem hell-bent on making sure he dies? Because that's kind of what would have happened if you sent somebody off to be beheaded.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was the moment where, like, all right, he just nicked him and like, okay, off with your head. Now you are a knight. That's where it all came full circle. That's when it all clicked. And I'm like, okay, this is what this movie was trying to be and what it was trying to say. But before then, there were like a couple of mixed signals, shall we say, at least for me.
Yeah. I mean, when you're at the point where he's yelling at big, scary-looking giants, and there's a fox, and then the choir's just going off, you know, and it's a 5-minute scene with no cuts. You might be going like, okay, what is this?
What was that? What was that really weird round? Not round, but that I don't know what you call that shot, but he went, like, the camera went all the way around in a 360 angle, and it showed Gawain in a decayed state, nothing but bones, and then it went back and like he was fine again. What was that trying to do or say there? Was it trying to tease about what was going to happen toward the end with that whole switch and bait and switch?
Tell you what I interpreted it as.
Okay.
Is that for me, it was just like, if he laid there and did nothing, he'd die.
Well, right, yeah.
Yeah, like, and that's why when it turns back around, it's like him going like, fuck that, like, I need to do something. And then he starts like he goes towards the sword and he cuts himself open, right? But it's sort of this thing of like, no one's coming to save him.
Right.
That's kind of the way I saw it. And again, yeah, okay. there could be that, larger
that fits
to it, but yeah.
There's this great analysis of this film published on the New Republic that I would really encourage people who are interested in the film learning more about it after having seen it. It's titled "The Green Knight is a delightfully gory moral test." David Lowery's movie starring Dev Patel, who is great in this. He looks amazing, by the way, toward the end of the movie with the crown on him. It's great look.
The costumes.
Yes.
So good.
Cleverly unfolds the public consequences of private indiscretions, as you were saying.
And like, even though there's no action scene, like traditional action scene that you would speak of. Oh, and I did want to do this because we have to tie it to Star Wars. Star Wars does take a lot of its mythology and myth making from King Arthur, and I think that's also why I respect it, because it's a knight movie and it's not about how badass of a fighter he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the struggle for him, even though he goes on this wild, crazy journey, it's not about how good he is with the sword. Like, it's never even brought up. Like, no one gives a shit about how good or not good he is with the sword. What makes him a knight is his character, right? Like that's really what's important, and that's kind of similar to what I take away with like Jedis and stuff like
right.
that. And when we've talked, it's not if you know Type 3 stance of Jedi in the old Jedi text, it's, you know, it's deeper than that. But that small scene, it's like a few seconds where they're like on the battlefield and he goes to see his son and you see like a massive battle in the background. And I'm like, he could do, because just that small scene, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, this is, it looks impressive.
No, right? Lowry can do, there's some flavorings in here that you really do suggest he can do some really big scale stuff. In fact, I thought to myself, man, if Disney were to do a sequel to Jungle Cruise, I'd like to see David Lowery and see what he'd do with that.
Be 2 hours of a boat slowly.
Well, Disney would never have allowed that. No, he wouldn't have had. No, there's no having that. But I would be very much interested in seeing what David Lowery would do with a Jungle Cruise-esque kind of action adventure film. But yeah.
Well, like I said, he's doing Peter Pan and Wendy.
Yes.
And I do think that subject material is
up his wheelhouse.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So that would be really
It makes me a lot more interested in that movie, whereas before I would not give two flying fucks about it existing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So Green Knight is definitely a cinematic experience at its finest. I enjoyed this conversation. It definitely has played a role in me overall feeling really, really good about this movie. It is an artistic experience first and foremost. And so, yeah, I'm sure this film will come up once again in conversation toward the end of the year. Which, speaking of, no, never mind. I'm not going to get into that conversation. I'm going to stay the fuck away from that conversation at all. Okay, so that's The Green Knight. You can catch it in theaters right now. Now, the next movie we have, make sure you get your wiki synopsis ready for this.
Let me see if they're still down. No, they're not.
They're not?
They're back.
They're back. Wow. That didn't take long at all.
And because I feel naked without having to do it, I'm still going to read the Green Knight one first. The Green Knight, directed by David Lowery. When honor was everything. An epic fantasy adventure based on the timeless Arthurian legend, The Green Knight tells the story of Sir Gawain, King Arthur's reckless and headstrong nephew, who embarks on a daring quest to confront the eponymous Green Knight, a gigantic emerald-skinned stranger and tester of men. See, that's a good... I like their synopses. I don't know. I think they're... Well, some of them. Sometimes they're fucking weird. But most of the time, they're really good. Okay. Jungle Cruise, directed by a name I can't say.
I'm going to say Joan Colette Serra.
Okay. The Adventure of a Lifetime. Dr. Lily Houghton enlists the aid of wisecracking skipper Frank Wolf to take her down the Amazon in his dilapidated boat. Together, they search for an ancient tree that holds the power to heal, a discovery that will change the future of medicine.
If only.
Starring Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt, Edgar Ramirez, Jack Whitehall, Jesse Plemons, Paul Giamatti, and other individuals. So yeah, Jungle Cruise.
Similarly, with how I did a breakdown of A24 and our recent history with them, this particular studio and the unit of Walt Disney Pictures, the live action unit of Walt Disney Pictures, this one I think Peter and I have been much more on the same page about for a very, 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 very long time. I will say, with exceptions, there are films that I happen to enjoy. And even those, Peter, are like, they're okay if that. Like, I enjoy Christopher Robin. I really like Mary Poppins, but I mean, of course it's me. Mm-hmm. I like the Muppets movies, Muppets and Muppets Most Wanted, which those are really old at this point.
I enjoyed those.
Yes, you did. And I happen to like Cruella, which I know you will despise.
That was blasphemy.
Hey,
Devil.
Man.
That sounds like devil.
They wore me down with that one. And there've been some good films like Jungle Book, which, I really don't care much about, but it's good. And then there's also Cinderella, which I actually enjoy too. So there are movies in there that are decent to okay. And then there are a lot of ones that are just awful. And then there are some that are really, really bad. In particular, we've talked about how the live action remakes have just been abysmal and they're just awful movies on every level. And this kind of movie, though, did in some small way promise the return of the studio that I remember growing up with in the early to mid 2000s. This film, in the marketing, as the trailer, the posters were really, really beautiful. The trailers were so-so, but the trailers promised something that was, esque to the tune of Pirates of the Caribbean, Indiana Jones, like the kind of those really, The Mummy, the action adventure movies that Disney used to make, like, National Treasure in the early 2000s. A movie that they have seemed to have lost the ability to even make, because there have been two Pirates films that came out in the 2010s, and they both were varying degrees of like, no, this ain't it.
I hated those.
I don't hate for. I think it's. not
I like
good.
the mermaid sequence.
It's not good, but it's not. I don't hate 4. 5 is wow. That one really. Whew,
That's not good.
that one's really not good. And so like the fact that they were promising a movie that they, for all intents and purposes, on the surface, have seemed to lost the ability to make. Yeah, it was troubling, but especially since also what it also had going against it was the fact that it had The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, who is a big star and drives box office. He's one of the last people that actually gets people to go to the theater based on his name alone. However, we have said this repeatedly that we do not really enjoy him in anything really because he has this proclivity of playing the exact same version of himself, the exact same character in all of the movies, even to the point of wearing the exact same outfit for a lot of these action films.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly,
he mixed it up with this one. He added a hat. Basically,
yeah. And literally. And a lot of his movies, I will say, I haven't watched. Only because, not that he himself is a repellent to the movies he's in, but a lot of the movies that he has been in have never caught my interest. San Andreas, the Fast and Furious films, even the Jungle, even the Jumanji movies, or the G.I. Joe movie he did. Like, none of those movies ever. Or Rampage. I hear Central Intelligence was good, but that was a while back with Kevin Hart. And so, like, for me, like, how many movies I've realistically have seen The Rock in are kind of a small amount. Like, the last one I can actually recall was Moana, and that one doesn't really count because he was just providing the voice there. I mean, it was a performance. Do not a Dwayne diminish Johnson that, flick. But it's not a Dwayne Johnson product, basically.
Yeah.
So this one, he's plastered all over it. And because of many of the movies he's in just aren't that great, it just kind of adds to this kind of feeling in the air like it's not gonna be that great ultimately in the end. And then there's Emily Blunt, who is becoming my favorite performer anywhere right now because of the sheer versatility that she has and how she is able to just go from movie to movie to movie and switch genre to a way that in an expert fashion I've not seen in a long time. I just saw her in A Quiet Place. I just purchased actually the Blu-ray yesterday, the Quiet Place Part 2. I like the movie better than the first one actually, but she's great in both of those movies. She's great in Edge of Tomorrow, this big action blockbuster. No matter what you think of Mary Poppins Returns, she delivered in the performance. She's great in anything and everything, and she was kind of like bringing up like my interest with the film, aside from it being like potentially a good movie. So with all that being said, here we are, Jungle Cruise, and I will say, I was surprised. I was surprised that this wasn't hot garbage. I was surprised that this wasn't hopelessly incompetent. I was surprised that there were relationships that I actually cared about, that there were performances that I actually liked, that there was a dynamic that made me feel invested, and then there was an overall mood and tone that I kind of vibed with, in spite of some very clear drawbacks and flaws that the film definitely has. It still doesn't quite reach the kind of action-adventure film Disney would have been able to pull off with in the 2000s, but it's the closest thing since, and it kind of like reminds you of the movies that they would always make, especially in the live-action unit. Honestly, it's not a perfect movie, but as far as where the film landed with me, I was very taken with it. I actually really liked the movie. I really liked the dynamic between the two leads or the three leads. I thought Blunt was great. I really liked Whitehall, and I was dreading what they would do with that character. And as far as Dwayne Johnson is concerned, this may be I was actually quite charmed by him. I don't know what the hell happened. Like, this movie put a spell on me or something, but they actually made me like him.
An Amazonian curse.
Basically. The CGI, though, whew, they need
Disney
God.
is terrible with CGI all of a sudden. Right? That's just not me.
No.
Because you look at those original Pirates films, the CG is amazing.
I told this to Kyle. I said this to Kyle. Like, there is no excuse that with the stuff they're trying to pull off in this movie, if they were able to in the mid 2000s, in my view, pull off some groundbreaking VFX work with the creation of not just Davy Jones, but each and every one of his men on the Flying Dutchman, and you're able to make that look realistic, and yet here you are in 2021 with the cursed conquistadores. And that looked abysmal. That was awful. That you spend $200 million on this movie. That was the budget for this movie. And that's the best you can make them look like, when in 2006, the product that you had with Davy Jones was damn right revolutionary. And Kyle was right when he said to me, like, they basically just recycled the VFX work from Captain Salazar from the fifth Pirates films. And it looked awful there, and it looks even worse here.
But even beyond that, like the animals and such. There's a lot of shot of animals.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a lot of things where it's just like, they should look better. Like, I'm sorry.
It should, yes.
There's no excuse for it, because the movies you made 20 years ago looked better with just as much CG.
They look far more realistic, and therefore they were far more immersive.
That's the thing. It's not even, I don't know if it's even the CG's bad, but it looks more cartoony.
Yes. Yes. You're right.
Yeah.
And it does ultimately bring down the estimation of the film overall, because, like, if the VFX work had been that much better, maybe it could have felt better about the movie overall.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But I forgot to mention Jesse Plemons. Loved him. But yeah. Your go.
This is not a great film.
No.
It's not.
No.
But here's the thing.
Exactly.
Here's the thing about that. This is the kind of film that Hollywood just don't make anymore. Not just Disney, anywhere and anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're just not getting made anymore. No. Not like this. And I love these kinds of films, right?
I love them too. Like, look. Let's just say this, not to lose your thought, but I know a lot of people crap on the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. I know everybody universally loves the first one, but as a trilogy, I still consider it to be one of the best, like, action adventure trilogies in film ever.
The thing is, when you're starving, okay, scraps taste like a full course meal. And they just don't make these movies anymore. So when I finally get to see one, I'm like, oh yeah, I love these kinds of films.
Yes.
And it's like, it's not great. Maybe it's not even that good, but it's trying.
Yes.
I don't even know if it's trying, but it's doing the things that I like.
Mm-hmm.
It's at least doing the things that I like. For one, it's a period piece, right? Yeah. I don't know why people forget period pieces are part of the fun of these adventures. Yeah. Like Indiana Jones to Pirates to the Mummies. What makes them work is transporting you to this beautiful exotic world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's part of the fun. It's a period piece. You can tell big sets. You could tell that little town in the Amazon. You could tell they built all that.
Yeah,
like, so much fun.
Evidently, by the way, Kyle tells me the concept art for what you saw in the final movie was heavily based off the Jungle Cruise attraction in Tokyo.
Oh, okay.
And how it looks like there, which is very different than where it is like here in America.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
But no, it's like I love that, like, these big, beautiful sets for them to run around in. The characters are fun, right?
Yes.
Paul Giamatti knows what movie he's in.
Yes.
And he does his thing. Same with Jesse Plemons.
Oh my God.
He's doing his fucking thing, all right? And like, is this literally the Mummy, pirates, and Indiana Jones thrown into a blender and then like pushed out like you're making sausage? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you have the Mummy setup of the strong woman, the dashing hero, and the sort of brother that the comedic relief brother that always needs help.
Right.
You have the CG creatures, henchmen, bad guys from Pirates. You have the fun hand-to-hand action brawl, where everyone's running around everywhere as they're trying to dodge bullets and flying on ropes from literally all three of those films. Yes, right? The exotic locations, all of it. And I just missed that. I don't know what to tell you. I'll put it this way, like if something like one of the mid-tier MCU movies comes out, and it's like, oh God, again with this, like, do better, right?
Right.
But if the MCU did not exist, and no superhero movies were really being made, and then one of the mid-tier MCU
like Black
movies,
Widow, for example.
Yeah, that came out, I would be like, thank God, like this. Oh God, I needed this.
Right.
This is thank you for existing, because they just don't make them. That's kind of the way I feel like with Jungle Cruise, right? And you have Emily Blunt, and she's great. And you have The Rock, and he's great in these types of roles. I still think he can't act. I feel like with emotional scenes, it's just,
it ain't quite there.
It ain't there. It probably won't ever be there, because this is his kind of film and he doesn't feel the need to move out of it, right? Because a lot of other type of people like him that started out as not an actor and then moved into an actor, they would go for films that would push them, like
Bautista.
Like Bautista, like Will
or
Smith.
Cena.
Cena, I feel, is doing that. He's never done that, The Rock. So I feel like he's always going to be limited to his charisma. But this is a character that's just about charisma.
Basically.
So it works.
Yes.
And I think the action is well done. And it's fun.
Yeah.
They incorporate the big sets a lot, and it's fun. You know, they're punching. It's that old-fashioned knuckle brawl style fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I at the end of the day, I cannot deny that I enjoyed my time watching the film. I genuinely had fun watching it. And it's not one of those things where it's like, I had a good time, but like, fucking stop. Oh, God, I fucking hate this. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of that. Go back and listen to our review from Black Widow, right? Like, we're like, yeah, we kind of had a good time, but like, Jesus Christ, like, stop.
Yeah, we had a good time watching a movie, and then we proceeded to bitch about it for an hour and a half.
Yeah, and I don't feel the need here.
No, not in the slightest. I mean, aside from the things that obviously are an impediment, which is visual effects work, which I think is pretty unanimously like regarded as bad, and they need to really step up that work. And it really does hinder the film with some of the stuff that it's trying to do, clearly. But aside from that, like everything else, like again, it's not great, but I had so much fun with it. And it's not so much like, you know, it's just so many movies, especially from this studio, have failed to even get the basic of things anywhere remotely correct. And here you have this wonderful instance where the characters are fun and the actors are so committed to it. You know, Blunt is like giving it her all, and it's like the dynamic, I said, between her and Johnson actually kind of work. And I was really kind of like questioning how that would happen, but like in the film, there's kind of a turn that happens with their relationship, and I'm like, I'm not hating it. I found myself like, I'm not hating it. And the film is kind of surprisingly romantic. Of course, it doesn't, in my view, play that up or do it as well as as it could. But it does it in a way that, okay, I remember a lot of movies growing up where they kind of just add this in and it works. And while in most cases I don't, again, it's not all that expertly crafted, you might say, but as far as the romance is concerned, I kind of dug it. I don't know. There was a lot of stuff that I really did enjoy. Even the stuff with, so many times I stopped myself like thinking, am I really enjoying Dwayne Johnson right now? Like, you're right. He's all charisma, but damn, does the charisma work really well.
It's worked for him this far, and God has it worked for him, right? I feel like the romance, like everything else, where it's like, it's not the best. It could be done a lot better, but goddamn, it's nice to have, like, remember when films were allowed to be romantic?
Yes,
and have, like,
exactly.
Because all the major blockbusters, there's no romance.
None.
There's just none. There's love interests that I guess exist to be there.
Right.
But there's no genuine romance like there used to be.
There's no attempt to have.
There's no attempt, right? And it's that thing where it's like, you're not doing it amazing or even all that great, but everyone else isn't even attempting it. So
right.
It feels wrong to like try and smack you and be like, you're not doing it all the way right, when everyone else isn't even trying.
Not at all.
All I have to go is like, thank you for reminding me that blockbusters can have romance in them.
Right,
you know?
right.
It
is possible to do this with these kind of movies.
Yes. Because even with the Pirates 4 and 5, those have romance.
Sure.
It's there just to exist. Like, I feel nothing. It's so fucking lame, right? And that's another thing too, because it feels like ever since the initial success of Pirates, Disney, it's like they created the perfect formula and then they lost the recipe, and they've been throwing shit at the wall trying to, like, was it this? Was it this? Was it this? Why did people like these movies? Right. And this is the first time where I'm like, you're onto it. You're close.
You're getting there.
You're getting there. Don't give up. Keep searching. You're very close.
It almost feels like, was this an accident? Because you haven't made anything like this in a long time. No. You haven't made anything this good in a long time.
And it's everything that's attempted to be like this has been, I think in recent memory, has been an embarrassing failure.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible. So when this comes out and it's like, it's kind of competent. It's like, thank you, you know? It's like, oh my god, like, this is fun. I remember these types of films. I like them.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like, they're being romantic with each other. That's great. Like, remember when an action scene wasn't like superhero action?
Yeah.
It was just regular people. Yeah, swashbuckling action, you know?
Like that scene early on in the movie. That, I think that the scene where Emily Blunt is escaping and she's on a ladder.
Yes.
That's when I was like,
they're doing it right. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, this might work. Because it's working right now. Just keep it up and this might actually end up being a winner.
I will say, who knows, maybe it's just because I came out of The Green Knight. The film felt paced quickly. Maybe I was thrown off by having just watched that other film. But it did feel, I feel like all the other great films have more moments of quiet where you slow it down and just be like, okay, Like let's build up.
There were a couple of scenes in the movie that they did that.
There are, but there's no building, right? Like,
right.
So in Indiana Jones, you start off, you have the great, like, you know, he is Indiana Jones, like the boulder and all of that.
Right. But
then you slow it down, you bring it back to the college,
mm-hmm.
you build up all of that stuff. He goes, he meets up with Marion again.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
there's a build up from there.
Right.
And here it starts.
The movie's constantly going.
It's just going. It starts off with their hero. You have that initial, like, what they should have done after that initial incident with her escaping, stealing the thing, is all right. Let's slow it down a little bit. But it feels like
we skipped a couple of scenes and we went.
Yeah, and then it's just like go. But I mean, yeah. So that's another criticism. Like, again, I could go in if I wanted to, I guess. You could go in and be like, CG sucks. It was written. It's a dumb script.
It's a movie based off a ride.
But it's like it did so much right, or at least did so much competently.
Right.
It feels like
it earned a lot of goodwill.
So many things that Hollywood feels it's just completely forgotten.
Yeah.
In the past decade or two, and it's actually able to do them competently and sometimes really well. That I'm just like, I just latched onto that and I had a good time.
Absolutely.
So I can't really. I don't feel the need to like. No, like it's doing the good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was some stuff in here that actually really surprised me. Like, they kind of got meta with it. In the beginning, when you see Dwayne Johnson's introduction as Frank,
mm-hmm.
As the skipper of his Jungle Cruise, and it basically was like a makeshift version of the actual Jungle Cruise attraction, where he had these people on there, and he was showing them like all of the sights to see on the river, all the while cracking some puns. And that's basically what the ride is at Disney, at all the Disney parks. Mm-hmm. I'm saying this because Peter has never once been on the Jungle Cruise, so I had to inform him that this is going to be a major thing in the movie, so that there were going to be a lot of puns, and that clearly is what happened here.
See, you did your job, but I didn't do my job in informing you that the Green Knight was a King Arthur.
Well, I feel that kind of encapsulates our relationship. So there is,
because I think so much of you, and you think very little of me. I think you're right.
I think the reverse may be the truth there than what you just put out there. But I guess that is in and of itself open for interpretation. But that I was surprised they worked, and I will say, since I did see it twice, I saw it with Kyle and then I also saw it with you. Mm-hmm. In both of the screenings, the audience was very receptive toward it. They were very much enjoying the film. And I do believe it got like an A- cinema score or an A cinema score.
I think it was A-.
So it's a crowd pleaser. And in both of the audiences, it definitely worked. Yeah.
I will say, like, that whole pun thing, I was like, it was kind of cute, but it was like, they gotta force it in here for the ride, okay. But they do reveal something about the character.
They do.
Where I'm like, it makes sense that he likes pun jokes.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate, is that they actually found a way to insert these, what you would, on the surface, call corporate mandated Easter eggs to the property it's based off of. But they kind of interweave that with a character purpose, which I really like.
Yeah, it works. Like, yeah, I think it works that he's sort of a sleazy, I don't know, cruiseman. I don't know what they're called. Businessmen on the Amazon River. So he's created this sort of silly little attraction to sell to the visitors. Like, that fits, right? Like, that works. So, yeah, no. For sure, there's a lot of things like that fit. And there's some fun things they do, like with the natives. I kind of saw it coming, but I thought it was still fun when they did it.
Oh, yeah. I think you're meant to, because, like, when you first see the opening scene, like, he does give him a wink, which confirms.
Yeah, it sounds like he's...
yeah. At least for me, you forget about that, though, by the time you get to the middle of the film, and then you see what happens. At least I did it the first time around. But I'm very forgetful, it seems, in movies.
And maybe I guess I'm not politically correct, because I think some people have had issues with this. But I love the English fop comedy relief type character.
Right.
I think those are fun.
I think those are fun too, and to me, it worked actually. I think Whitehall really worked in the movie. I think where it got, where I can understand initially where people were coming from is, well, he's not just foppish. He also happens, to be an LGBT person, and so at that point,
he's a lesbian.
At some point, like, people would wonder, okay, so is he foppish? Are they trying to say this is an example of him being LGBT because he's foppish, or the other way around, right? So, but I think the reshoots, remember, we talked about this, how there were reshoots to, especially with this character, because evidently at first they went really over the top with this to the point of it being LeFou from Beauty and the Beast.
Ooh, and that's another one where it's like, I thought LeFou was terrible. That was offensive.
It was. No, it was. That was offensive. That one was, and it was cringe-inducing. And so it seemed like, and I can see some fragments of it here, where they realized what they were doing with this was bad, and they had to completely rewrite and reshoot some of the scenes with him to make him be more competent, and then also just be less, tone down the over-the-top flamboyance that they could really have come across. And so if that's the case, and I do believe that that's what happened, thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Because I could totally, like LeFou, I can 100%, to me, modern Disney would make this character fucking annoying. Right?
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, not only offensive, but, like, annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But he was likable in this.
He was, wasn't he?
The funny stuff with him, I thought, was genuinely funny. So I think cutting back, again, the fact that they had the good nature to understand, like, yeah, we may have gone too far in a few places. That's good. And again, it's the first time in a long time that I feel Disney has been able to do that, because I feel because I think they're just so afraid to admit in any sort of way that their character is gay, but they want the points for having a gay character. So their idea is like, well, don't say that he's gay, but, make sure he comes off as gay.
Here's some examples. Let's have let's feature two moms on the Disney Channel show Good Luck Charlie, or on the movie Onward, let's have a lesbian cop and say that she has a girlfriend, or in Avengers Endgame, we'll have like Joe Russo say that he was on a date with a man, or in the case of Beauty and the Beast, let's have LeFou have a dance with a man.
Like, oh, so funny.
Yeah, like, or in Finding Dory, we'll have, like, in the background, two lesbian moms. Like, that's the stuff they do. Or, and I think also to an extent, I mean, they do say it, but the problem with Loki is they were building it up in the press to be a moment bigger than what it actually was. And what happens is a lot of these moments, Disney themselves build them up in the press to be these big moments. And then when you actually see them, they're much worse because of how much they build them up. Whereas here, I think for the most part, the press has been restrained. Disney has been restrained how much they've been building up the sequence. Because there is a moment basically where he doesn't say the word, but he basically says,
this is the first time where it actually felt like, he doesn't explicitly say, I am gay. The point of the scene is for the audience to go, oh, and it's like a major scene, right?
It's
why he feels he's so protective of his sister, So it's not just like, oh, some random background character mentions a boyfriend and then quick move the camera,
Or in The Rise of Skywalker, we saw like two girls kiss
in the far off distance. Two girls kiss and then we cut away. Like this is the closest they've come to actually just saying he's gay. They don't say it, but as an audience member, the point for you is to understand that he is gay, and that's a big point it's a big point within the film, right? Because it's about...
in the 1910s, where that thing is very much,
and they admit that too. He's like, I was cut off from society, but my sister, she saved me, and she's the reason why I'm still,
living.
Living. So it's like, okay, like this is the first time I will give a level of kudos to Disney.
Yes. Yeah. And like I was dreading what it would look like actually before seeing it. But I actually, while again, many would argue still not nearly enough, this is the closest they've gotten to getting it right. And it felt like a natural conversation actually.
It's okay. In Russia and China, they'll change the subtitles of that scene.
Yeah. That's also a thing they do. And I'm sure in a week or so, we'll be seeing how they've changed the scene completely, which is unfortunate. But then also with Jack Whitehall, it's like, you could very easily say, well, because he is LGBT, that's why he's so flamboyant and so like a fish out of water in the situation. But what I like what they do is he doesn't necessarily is just that. He does get some nice action beats toward the end where he, gets in the ring and throws some people off balance. And, there's even a scene or two where he punches Dwayne Johnson in the face. And they think Dwayne Johnson actually says that was a really good punch. So I'm glad his foppish persona is not being used to reinforce a negative stereotype about LGBT men in particular.
But it doesn't, for me at least, it didn't feel like there was like an on-off switch, right? Where it's like, all of a sudden at the end, it's like, oh no, now he's Popeye.
Yes.
Like it wasn't that. Like, it felt natural.
It did, didn't it?
And then also like, it cuts back to, it's like a callback to the earlier scene where like the sister punched him and he's like, good form, right? And then he punched him accidentally. He's like, oh God, your family has good form. Like, what's going on? Like, you guys,
I love that really scene though. That scene, which kind of reminded me of the deleted sequence from The Last Jedi, where Luke kind of fucks with Rey. Basically happens the same way here in the middle of the movie, where what's his name, Frank, really fucks with them, with the whole like native people and everything.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And like what was it? Both of them hear like the whole plan. And at some point, Trader Sam mentioned that Frank had referred to McGregor, I believe, is the brother's name, as Wimpy. And then immediately after, like Lily slaps the shit out of him. After that is McGregor, and he's like, Wimpy, huh? And then he slaps the shit out of him too, which I thought was a pretty hilarious moment. All around though.
See, I could imagine them doing that scene in a worse way.
Yes.
Where like she comes and hits him and it's like, oh God, like it hurts him, and then he comes and he's like, and like lightly taps him and and it's just like, ugh,
They could have I'm sure like a couple years ago, they could have very well easily have done that.
Yeah. But they didn't do that. And like, I like where he's like, he doesn't like all this adventuring bullshit. He is that foppish Englishman, but he's not incapable, It's just ain't for him,
And with Jack Whitehall in particular, he's primarily known as like a British comedian. And he has this show on Netflix called Travels with My Father. And basically Whitehall was channeling his own father, who is not gay, by the way, but is very, very foppish. And I saw an interview with him where he was basically channeling his own father as far as like inspiration for how to do this character. And so it's very nice for him. And actually you go ahead.
No, I'm saying that's probably why it worked so well.
Yeah. And I was surprised to see him basically be like, a third lead in this movie, like part of the trio. Whereas in the trailers, I think he was barely showcased in the trailers.
Because he ain't Emily Blunt and he ain't
right.
Dwayne Johnson. Although, you know what is funny? I was rolling my eyes at the part where Dwayne Johnson was fighting the leopard.
I know.
And I was like, of course Dwayne Johnson would have it in his contract where he can't even fucking lose a fight to a leopard or some shit like he has to be this badass and da 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 da. But then you find out like, oh no, it was part of his
He's a cat
scheme.
owner like you, and I'm sure that immediately built a bridge to your heart.
It endeared me to him, yes. I was like, okay, he didn't actually get
fight
in fisticuffs with a leopard.
It was a show thing.
Mm-hmm. So there was stuff like that where I'm like, oh god, I'm ready to wince, right? And then I'm like, no, it works out. It works out good. Like with the first villain we at least see, what's his name?
Jesse Plemons,
right? And I'm like,
as the prince, El Príncipe. He's a German prince, and he's basically. I don't want to create this kind of unintended consequence where because he happens to be playing a German in the early 20th century, like that automatically means like he comes off as a Nazi.
They're doing the bad Nazi thing,
but they're doing that.
That's what they're doing. 100%. They're going full Indiana Jones with it.
Even though this is World War I era, not World War II, which I guess makes it... I don't know what that makes it, actually. It's just... But they're doing what they're doing. The Germans... And again, historically speaking, the Germans are the bad guys in World War I, right? Like, as they were in World War II.
We fought them.
From a certain perspective. From a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view. I don't know enough about World War I. I just know it was a massive clusterfuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were obviously, they wanted the Nazi character, but it was but they weren't, it wasn't set in that time period. They're like, the Germans we fought the Germans too in World War I. It'll fit, you know, and to be fair, it does. I went along.
Jesse Plemons knows exactly what kind of movie he's in. Like, I love the fact that he can be a great character actor as well. I remember he was hysterical in Game Night. That was one of the first ones.
He was so funny. And I loved him in that.
I love how he can be so funny in that and yet be so sociopathically disturbing in Breaking Bad. Like, it's just a really difference of a performance. And then here, he knows what movie he's in, and like, there's these quirks he adds to the performance that are just so, like, I love how after he opens up the hatch to the submarine, and he's saying hi to them, like, Lucian.
He's like,
and then
just like his little wave.
Right. But then also, like, because he had, before the fact of opening the hatch, he put on his record player and it's playing on a song, and he knows it so much by memory that he's actually humming it as he's shooting torpedoes at them.
Yeah. No, it's great. That to me is like the fun part, right?
Yeah.
Where you have these sort of larger than life characters, but not quite supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
There are supernatural characters, but those...
Yes.
That's other stuff, right?
Yeah.
But your main characters, you want them to just be these larger than life. And I talked about my reservations when it came to this film, because I talked about like The Mummy, like you had actors like Brendan Fraser, where he's this larger than life guy, where it's like, yes, like those are the kind of actors you want for these kinds of films. But no, with the material, I think it worked with all of them. Mm-hmm. And even though the CG wasn't great, maybe it's just because I grew up with the Pirates films. I dug into the conquistadors who become part of the jungle themselves.
Yeah, I noticed that there's this thing where like a lot of critics like. A lot of people I read and saw in reviews felt that the plot did get convoluted, especially when it came to the addition of the supernatural conquistadors. And I don't know if that's so much because it's convoluted, or if critics just assume when you introduce any kind of supernatural element, therefore it becomes convoluted. Because I remember the same critique being lodged against, in particular, Dead Man's Chest and At World's End.
Oh, yeah.
Although At World's End had a lot of problems, that's for sure.
Yeah,
but both of those films had supernatural elements. But as far as like calling Dead Man's Chest convoluted, I didn't think that one was convoluted. And I don't think this was that hard to really grasp. I thought it was pretty simple to understand. So I don't see that criticism.
I got it. I understood it. I mean,
the concept of what they were going for.
Yeah, they're cursed to stay on the Amazon River. What's his name traps them so they cannot reach the river. So they become part of the land itself. Yeah,
and again, like I noticed the second time how many times in Frank's dialogue they were dropping mad hints. They went over my head completely because the first time I'm like, oh, I didn't see that coming at all. Where he ends up being one of those conquistadors.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but I laughed so much seeing his big ass in those like frilly outfits because he's just like bursting out of it. It is like supposed to be this serious scene, and you can tell they knew it looked funny too because they would try to like not get him close up, but there was a few shots of like his body, and I'm like, oh, this is funny. I love it.
Yeah. And then Emily Blunt, look, as I mentioned before, I can basically watch her do anything and I'll always enjoy her. She's great. I love how she's just so committed to this. And she, in many ways, is a great magnetic presence, especially in these kind of, in some ways, larger than life roles. Like, this is not something that is, I think, typical or easy for people to jump into and out of it. But she seems to do it so seamlessly. And she loves to do these kind of films. And I thought it was hilarious how one of the running gags in the movie is that she's a woman that wears pants. And I did hear a little girl who otherwise enjoyed the film in the first screening I had with Kyle out loud question, why does he keep calling her pants? And
listen here, little lady.
Oh yeah. And even in the second screening, hilarious, there were a group of, it was a family next to us. And one of them, during a really nice sequence where, again, this is like in the middle of the 1910s, and Lily, Emily Blunt's character, introduces to Frank what a moving picture is, and she has a moving picture box basically to record moving pictures. And one of the kids off to the side said, "So like a video."
I'm gonna smack the shit out of that kid.
Which in my mind is like, the ignorance of innocence.
Goddamn children.
But
these youngsters.
A video is
back in my day.
A video is a moving picture. I mean, I'm not saying this to make fun of them. I'm just saying this.
It's cute.
I thought those were cute reactions from both of them, and it's also just a reminder to people who question some of the things that are happening in the movie. They do commit to the fact that it is a period piece, and so both of these things, like with her being pants, like it's not common to see a woman in pants. Like it's not just that that the conquistadors say la mujer en pantalones. But it's also even like all the characters here that just consistently refer to that.
Mm-hmm. Period pieces are fun.
Yeah.
Half of the fun out of all these adventure films comes from, I honestly feel a lot of it comes from it being a period piece. And you can play with that, right? Like, she's a woman in pants and everyone's like, oh my gosh. And it's a running gag and it's cool. But yeah, that's cute, little girl.
So Jungle Cruise, go see it. It's a lot of fun. Go see it in the theater, especially.
Mm-hmm. It's a fun theater movie, I think, especially with an audience. Yeah, check it out.
Okay, we're going to go and wrap it up now. Thank you all for listening. As a reminder, you can catch our podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Castbox, YouTube, anywhere, every single Sunday, sometimes on Thursdays. We'll see you back next time. Thank you, Peter. Thank you all for listening. Stay under the spotlight. Bye-bye.